Hello friends, welcome to Coding Garden. If you're watching this when this is not live, be sure to check the description or the pinned comment so you can jump ahead to the main content, the main show. In the meantime, we're going to hang out in the waiting room, so I'll see you soon. Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. Welcome to Wednesday. Today we're going to be looking at some web dev news and also answering any code questions that you might have. Welcome in, everyone. Good to see you. So we will get our news from various sources. We've got a multi-Reddit I've created called Web Dev that has 23 web development related subreddits, and we've sorted by top in the past week. So we'll look at the news there. We also have the Syntax Snack Pack. So this is a newsletter that goes out via email that has some links that we might check out as well. There's also the JavaScript Weekly newsletter, bestofjs.org. And then if you have any suggestions of something I should check out, something new and interesting, feel free to link it in the chat as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you cannot share links there. So if you want to share a link, head over to Twitch. You can share it there. We'll do that. We'll talk about news for probably like an hour or two. And then after that, I'll answer any code questions that you might have. We haven't done a code Q&A in months, many months. But you can literally ask me anything. And that question will pop up over on vox.coding.garden. So if you do !ask followed by your question, it will show up here. And then I will do my best to talk about it or answer it. Well, thanks. Yeah, I worked on my stickers this morning. I had to get rid of any stickers that were blue because they were invisible because of my blue background. But yeah, I appreciate that. I know sometimes you'll see a laptop covered in stickers and it doesn't look intentional. It's just like a bunch of stuff. But these are all media franchises that I like and tech things that I like. And it's represented here on my laptop. But yeah, if you have a question, !ask. We'll get to it probably in like an hour and a half. And I like to show code samples too. So if you have like a code related question, happy to spin up some code examples and talk about it. Oh, you did, Pablo? No way. Shout out to Pablo. Pablo is a longtime viewer of Coding Garden. And they apparently did a stream. But apparently they don't have VODs turned on, which is cool. But I'll draw. I don't know. I don't think I'm even following you, Pablo. That's awesome. How did your stream go though? And what'd you talk about? Yeah. !ask. Don't forget the exclamation mark, or it won't show up here. And then you can go here, vox.coding.garden, just to make sure that the question actually showed up. How do I add Firebase Google Auth to my Chrome extension? Do !ask. I don't know if I can show a full code example for that, but I can talk through it. I think ultimately that'd be tricky, right? Because you need to redirect back to some page. I don't know the intricacies of like being able to like open a new window from a Chrome extension that's like an OAuth window or something like that. No, that's great, Pablo. I think the thing is you have a pretty decent Twitter following, and I think that's how a lot of people get their initial viewership who are starting to live stream is they tweet it out, and then people will tune in. Working on a side project and a game in Svelte. Very cool, very cool. But yeah, welcome in, everyone. It's good to see you all. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, my dudes. Let's say hi to everyone. And then we'll jump in. Yeah, and I mean, that's why I have the waiting room, is I know it takes a while for people to get notifications and everything. All right, so if you would like me to say hello to you, you can say hi, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hi, up, what's up, morning, afternoon, evening, howdy, good day, coding hayo, vohayo, or boga hey. Say any one of these things, and I will notice you and say hello. So, SQL Gordster, almost always the first to say hello. Says, coding hayo. What's up, SQL Gordster? Good to see you. And hello to Arion. What's up, Malin? And Limotes and Matt and One Line of Me. Hello, Kathane and Drop Mania and Mark Boots, they're really hitting the regular expression. I think they are, though. Here's the thing. You have a comma next to each of these. I don't know if that will match the regular expression. Maybe it will. What's up, Big Up? And SMC May I, good to see you. What's up, Dark Times? And Fireball Monkey. I feel like it's been a while, Fireball. Welcome in. What's up, Amitabh? And Monseigneur. and Alad, good to see you. What's up? I am Salim and Ashley and AV Rumi and Pablo. What's up? Neo Angelism and hello, Make It Pies and Adrian. Default also with the full matching. Good to see you. What's up, Yaya and Yoroshi and the Coding Ride and Stony Eagle. Heyo. What's up, Kia? I guess you said heyo earlier, didn't you? Yeah. What's up, Kia and Tank? Good to see you all. Welcome in. Hello from Canarias. I've admitted it before. I am very ignorant of geography. Where is that? What is it? Canarias. Canarias. The Canary Islands. Is that what that is? Very cool. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in. All right, let's jump into the news. I think I will start with, let's just look at the top 10 posts on r/webdev from the past week. Let's see what's going on there. And actually, if you want to see this multi-Reddit, you can get to it here. A multi-Reddit is essentially a combination of subreddits, but you don't have to be subscribed to them. Somebody did ask about r/htmx. I don't have any subreddits that have a lot of memes. I feel like r/htmx is mostly memes. Like I don't have programming horror or programming humor on here, just because I want mostly news, not jokes. But okay, this is I did see this earlier when I was browsing Reddit. So I'm making a true Emmet extension for VS Code. I had never thought about this. I mean, I feel like there are snippets for when you're working in VS Code with React. But it is interesting that in React, I mean, this is something you're going to be doing over and over again if you are, I don't know what I was going to say, if you're working on an app, because you're always creating state variables and you're always creating like state name and then set state name. So this is cool because so if you're not familiar, Emmet is an extension that helps with writing HTML. So you can like start typing out like a sequence of element names with periods and then also like class names, and then it expands it. So it's pretty cool. Though, I don't know how much better this is than just like a use state snippet. You know? Honestly, let's just test it out really quick. We'll do it in here. Let's create a VTAP with React. Yeah. In WebStorm, if you rename a state, it also renames the set name. Yeah, I think that's mainly what people want, right? Because you're always, those two things are like always together. Let's check it out. I don't even know if I have any snippets installed, but like, let's say I have this. Do I have? Yeah, I don't think I even have any React snippets installed. Let's see what the extension store has for us. So 10.5 million installs, ES7, React Redux, native JS snippets. I mean, that's 10.5 million installed. Let's see this one. Let's see what kind of snippets we get for state. I'm actually kind of baffled that I don't have any snippets. I'm usually a huge proponent of like snippets and stuff. Okay, so state, I see. That's like the old one, but they have the use state snippet. Yeah. Okay, this is where it's weird though, right? Because it doesn't camel case. It doesn't camel case the set name. So that's where this could be weird, right? Or like where this isn't perfect, and that other snippet could come could be useful, right? Because if I do this, let's say I want a name, and then like the initial value there. Oh no, it did capitalize it. It capitalized it. Cool. So yeah, the snippets you can find in VS Code are nice. I'm curious what more this would give us. But yeah, very interesting. All right, next up, I hacked a big prize web game hosted by a popular supermarket chain. few years back, a well-known supermarket chain set up a prize game. Since it was a web-based game, you can guess what happened. And we've talked about this. So on WebSec Wednesdays, we've been talking about only doing like client-side validation, not doing your validation on the back end. And I imagine that was the case. They opened up the dev tools, they tweaked the game. Prizes were items worth more than $50, and there were over 100,000 items for grabs. After realizing this and placing myself high on the leaderboard with way more points than anyone else, I reached out to someone via LinkedIn, let them know about the vulnerabilities. It's unbelievable. They never fixed it, nor did they cancel the game. Of course, I never claimed my prizes, but it's quite a story. First of all, just a commentary on the fact that this is just like an anecdote, but it's like at the top of r/webdev over the past week, which is funny. I mean, they could be making this story up entirely. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. let's pretend this actually did happen. Yeah, and I'm curious to see what the comments say, because ultimately, when something like this happens, a lot of companies will have some kind of bug bounty where you can reach out to them. You can say, hey, there's an issue. This is what I found. And before going public with it, you give them a chance to fix it. And if they have some kind of bug bounty program, they'll potentially like pay you for finding the bugs that you found. So yeah, that is a thing. I'd be curious why this sparked so much discussion though. Let's see. Chances are they probably didn't care. These types of games are solely for marketing. The prices they give away are priced in already. They don't care who wins or why, as long as people engage with the game and therefore their brand. I worked for a marketing agency back in the day where those types of games were popular on Facebook. Nobody ever cared about cheaters as long as enough people saw and played the game and left their data. Yeah. Oh no, it's not a mouse. It's just a rubber frog. I use a left-handed mouse for now. Yeah, my bug bounty is that if you find some exploit or bug in my overlay, I'll VIP you. Maybe I will. What's up, Bytherial? Welcome in. Yeah. And the Coding Ryan says, thanks for what you do in the coding community. I support you in your demand. Oh, thank you, Coding Ryan. I appreciate that. And what's up, Gap? Welcome in. Hello. And the Petite Principe. Bonjour. And Hiroshi, what's up? All right. Oh, you know what? I did send you stickers, didn't I? Cool. Let's see. Yeah, it just sparked a discussion. That's fine. Good for them. All right, what's up next? What's the point in SEO when stuff like this happens? Yeah, so this is just a commentary on sponsored links in Google search results. I don't know if it will be listed here, but there was a recent study that kind of just dove into how bad Google search results have gotten, like how irrelevant, how the first page is just filled with either ads or people that are like gaming SEO. And yeah, it's a thing, which is why, not sponsored, I use DuckDuckGo. And Eddie, thank you for the 5. That's awesome. I really appreciate it. I didn't hear it at all though. Hopefully I turned up my speakers, but thank you, Eddie. Something like, so like if you use DuckDuckGo, JavaScript reverse string. I don't know. You probably get pretty relevant results, at least for this on Google. But I think we're like reaching the tipping point, because for the longest time, I would actually have to jump to Google from DuckDuckGo if it was something I couldn't find. These days, I very rarely have to leave DuckDuckGo to find what I'm looking for. So yeah, it's crazy that they've let themselves get this way. And like, is this the beginning of the end, right? So I've been thinking a lot about like older tech companies that were really big for a long time, and it felt like they would just be that big tech company forever. Like Yahoo is an example. Everyone used to have a Yahoo email. They were everywhere, and like they were one of the big tech companies everybody wanted to work for, but they slowly lost out to Google search results and everything else. And now it's they're just not as big, or their name isn't as big. And it could happen to Google too. It felt like Google was too big for something like this to happen to. But yeah, that's the other thing. Bing integrating ChatGPT was huge, and all of the stuff that Microsoft has done to get people to use Bing. Like if you wanted to use the ChatGPT version of Bing, you had to install Edge browser. And so that's another thing. It got a bunch of people to switch from Chrome to Edge. We're seeing it happening. This is like the beginning of the end of Google. I mean, obviously they're really huge, and they have other things that they do, right? They have the Android operating system, they have YouTube, but they could potentially lose out in search, which is crazy to think about. But yeah. I'm a Google One user. I wonder if I get sponsored links. I don't know, because I am too. But thanks again, Eddie. That was awesome. Obviously, as my new extension got 1,000 users since I released the update, partially thanks to advertising it through my 100K extension. Yeah. I guess you had advertisements for your own extensions because you make a lot of extensions, and so like you're getting people to install your other extensions. YouTube search results are useless as well. I usually find what I'm looking for, but they have started doing the thing where only the first 10 or so items are actually search results, and then everything after that is like suggestions or like you might like this, and it's not actually a search result. Yeah. What do you mean, Robin? What do you mean about images? Have I tried Perplexity AI? I have not. Yeah, that's the other thing, and like this almost went away for a while too with the whole like Reddit fiasco when they started to charge for their API after a certain amount of usage. But yeah, if you put Reddit, you'll get Reddit answers, and typically the results here are a lot better because it's people, answering support questions for other people and stuff like that. Yeah. So did DuckDuckGo get better? I find myself, personally, that's how I've experienced it so far. Is you can probably see on Coding Garden streams if you watch me searching the web. It's gradually become that I can find what I'm looking for on DuckDuckGo and I don't jump out. But yeah, if you look a year ago, I was using DuckDuckGo, didn't find what I needed, and I would jump over to Google. Yeah, we would be in serious trouble if Bing would have better results than Google. It feels like it's happening though, especially with the AI integration. Apple could win in search and ads, yeah, because they do have the market share with iPhones. Yeah. What's stopping Google to implement Bard with the search engine? Nothing's stopping them, but unfortunately, they were like a little late. They tried their best to push it out as quickly as possible, but it's still like it wasn't as good as Bing Chat, and it wasn't as integrated. But that's probably what they're shooting for. And I'm guessing they're going to work on it, right? They're gonna try their best, and that could be what saves them for sure. Oh, nice, Eddie. That's a lot of seedlings. Yeah, let's see. What I don't know if I want to search for Bet365. Let me hide my screen. What is Bet365? Oh, it's a sports betting book. Okay, that's nothing crazy. But first result on DuckDuckGo, I'm guessing, is what they were looking for. Let's try it over on Google. I am going to hide my screen for the results initially, but if you use DuckDuckGo, this is how you can jump out to Google. !G Bet365 or whatever you want to search for, and it will jump over to Google. Yeah. So I am using YouTube Premium, but I also have my ad blocker on, but I do not get sponsored results. So yeah. Perplexity AI? Should I? Someone mentioned, okay, I think I'll try it then. Oh, I see. Google image search is probably better. And that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. I still think I usually find what I need on DuckDuckGo images, but yeah. Feels like we're reaching the bottom of the barrel of the ad-pocalypse, yeah. Yeah, most of the time I just want to stack or get result, and it gets worse and worse with random data scrapers taking over, yeah. Okay, let's see what happens if I turn, so if we search for Bet365 on Google, I turn my ad blocker off. We still get sponsored results, but it is the actual website. It's just a sponsored link to the actual website versus what they're getting here. Honestly, maybe they have some kind of like malware on their phone or something like that. The thing is, this did spark a discussion. Like, I don't if you hang out on like r/YouTube, these days it's nothing but posts about advertising and like how bad the advertisements have gotten on YouTube. I feel like it's really popular on Reddit to badmouth ads on websites. It gets a lot of people talking. Yeah. Oh. If you just do the letter G, I see what you're saying. I think it's related to location. Yeah, I think you're exactly right, because the sponsored link I got actually had like Colorado in the link. Okay, people are saying check out Perplexity AI. Let's see. Oh, is it this little device? They have a search engine too? Wait. This is Rabbit. Is this related to the little Rabbit device, or is that different? Okay. For some reason, it's just showing up. But it is a conversational search engine. How do I reverse a string in JavaScript? That's cool. It was also very fast, and I'm not even logged in. And it's citing its sources. Can we do it without built-in methods? Are they just using the OpenAI API? So yeah, they did it in reverse. Cool. What's up, Florin? It's been a while. How you doing? Have you streamed recently? Shout out to our good friend Lauren. Yeah. OpenAI isn't as fast. Yeah, I'm curious how they're doing this so fast. And I'm not logged in. I don't have any sort of like premium account. And it actually is really fast. Maybe they're just losing money. A British gambling company founded in 2000. I mean, I'm just searching for the thing that they searched earlier. What about Find? I mean, you all are talking about things I've never seen before. Yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I think this post was also talking about, so first of all, weird advertisements and sponsored links, worse search results. But then if you're worried about SEO in general, and then you have to compete with this, like what's the point? I think that's mainly what they were talking about. Yeah. What's up? I am Ruse. Welcome in. Yeah, and Florence says they are streaming again. Nice. I'll have to tune in. All right, Recaptcha-pocalypse. Google significantly reduces the Recaptcha free tier from 1 million to 10,000 free assessments a month starting April 1st, 2024. Is it an April Fool's joke? I guess because they're announcing it earlier, it's probably not. But that will be interesting. I mean, honestly, if you have over 10,000 people completing a CAPTCHA on your website, you probably should pay for it. I'm not mad about that. But that's basically what's going to happen here is people using the free tier of Recaptcha are going to have to start paying after 10,000 CAPTCHA completions. Yeah. I've heard that Nuxt is better for SEO than Next. Is that legit? I don't know the specifics of it. I think you can achieve the same level of SEO with either of them. Nuxt maybe has something built in that helps with that, but there's probably not any magic built into Nuxt. It's just that maybe it does more for you than Next does, but I don't know. This is called Dark Reader. Yeah, you can have it enabled for all websites, but I just only turn it on when a website doesn't already have dark mode. I feel like Recaptcha can be 100% defeated. Sure, but that also costs money. Like I think Recaptcha or like CAPTCHAs are just one level of bot protection. There's other ways like rate limiting and stuff like that you can do as well. But yeah, it at least puts a barrier to prevent like spamming requests. I guess once you, even if you complete the CAPTCHA, you still might get rate limited after that. Yeah. Quaint is a French browser. Fascinating. What's up, Chad? Welcome in. Where's the tree? I'll turn it on. There it is. Well, I'll say this: the next person to try and drop a a big image gets the tree turned off for the rest of the stream. Cool. So yeah, this is interesting news. There are probably other alternatives to this as well. Like there are other CAPTCHA systems that aren't Google's Recaptcha. So yeah, I guess it's just good to know if you're using it and you have more than 10,000 CAPTCHA completions per month, you're gonna have to start paying. Yeah. There's ways to get around it, but it is at least one level of protection, right? It's not the only thing you should be doing, but yeah, after you get past the CAPTCHA, it also depends on the site's policies because you could still implement rate limiting after getting past a CAPTCHA. So yeah, Cloudflare turns to okay, I haven't heard of that, but this is you're saying this is another CAPTCHA thing that's for free. Does that mean their AI model has been fully trained? Probably. Yeah, because I guess if you didn't know that, the CAPTCHA, a lot of the CAPTCHAs that you see on Google are actually training an AI to read text and like because they were scanning books in. Yeah. 1 million was free and now it's $99. Again, I thought you probably have, if you have a site that's with that much traffic, you're probably making revenue somehow. You can afford it. All right. This was interesting. Apple is bringing alternative web engines to iPhone, but for the EU only. So if you didn't know, for the longest time, I mean, up until now, as long as the iPhone and Apple have, as long as the iPhone has been a thing, only the Safari browser engine was supported on the device. You couldn't have a custom browser engine. Like, even though you could install Chrome or Firefox on iOS, it still was technically using the Safari rendering engine and JavaScript engine. But now, because of a law that was passed in Europe, iPhones in Europe will be able to have alternative browsers. Like, you won't have to use Safari anymore, and it allows browser companies like Firefox or Google Chrome to create a build for iOS. So that's cool. However, there's a lot of restrictions. Not restrictions. I mean, the other weird thing about this is, all right, so this also introduces, for web developers, specifically if we're talking about us and how this impacts us, now we have more browsers to test on for our websites, right? Because now we have a mobile version of Firefox for iOS. There's also mobile for Android, but then we're going to have a mobile version of Chrome, and it's potentially only supported in the EU. So I don't know the details of it, but ideally, Apple should have some way for developers to test that out locally, especially if their app is used by people in the EU, because they would need to test on other alternative browser engines running on iOS. So that's a thing to consider as well. Yeah, but I've read the comments on this one too. Like, it's going to be tricky ultimately. Like, it's cool that they're opening it up, but it's going to be tricky. And it's also like, okay, if they're opening it up at least for the EU, at what point maybe do you think they'll open it for the US as well? But yeah. Yes, Chrome on the iPhone is just a skin version of Safari. Yeah, so same thing as Firefox on iOS. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I would ever cover this on stream just because so many people are trying to do it. And typically, if you're trying to bypass CAPTCHAs, you're probably not like red teaming. You probably were not hired to by the company to hack them in that way. You're probably doing things that are not legal if you're trying to bypass CAPTCHAs. So I don't think I'll ever cover that on stream. Does that mean Chrome and Firefox will become faster? Potentially. I mean, if they can implement their own native browser engine, it could potentially render faster. The other thing is, like, if they're able to port their code base, then you have better JavaScript support, right? So if the whole Chrome engine, the same one that's running on desktop can now run on iOS, then that's a lot of support that you get out of the box that potentially wasn't implemented yet in Safari. Yeah. So yeah, you can install Chrome and Brave on iOS, but it is not. It doesn't have the Chrome rendering engine or JavaScript engine. It's WebKit. It's based on it's basically a skinned version of Safari. Yeah. Waiting for the punishment for complying, but yeah, it's going to be tricky. Brave is fine. Brave is fine. Ultimately, it's just based on top of Chrome, so yeah, it's just a Chrome reskin. Firefox is a completely different company and browser engine and JavaScript engine, and that's why I use Firefox, because I want there to be competition. Brave is like not quite competition because it's just on top of Chromium. Same thing as Edge, it's just built on top of Chromium. Yeah. Cancel my timeout on Hover? Well, I'm scrolling. Could this mean there's Chrome extensions on iOS? Potentially, yeah. That would be cool as well, right? Because Firefox on Android supports extensions. And so in my mobile browser, I use Firefox as well. And I've got an ad blocker. I've got a tracking script blocker and like a few other extensions that I use on desktop. I'm able to use on mobile as well. So yeah. I wonder if Apple now opens up Safari to be installed on Android. Could be interesting. They probably don't want to support that. I feel like they like to keep everything internal. DuckDuckGo is slow in Safari, but it's just a search engine. How could it be slow? I don't know. So yeah, that's interesting. We'll see what happens. But the main stuff I'm concerned about is like, all right, as a developer that potentially makes websites for people that will be in the EU, how can I test my stuff even though I live in the US? That's something that needs to be answered. They'll probably, but then that gets even trickier, right? Because right now, if you want to build iOS apps, you do have to sign up for the Apple Developer Program, and that costs money. And so now, maybe if you want to test for Firefox on iOS or Chrome on iOS, you have to also buy into that developer program. That would be unfortunate if that had to happen as well. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, you could care less, but at the same time, if you're building web apps that are running on iOS devices and your customers are in the EU, it's something that you're going to have to care about. Thoughts on the new Apple Vision device? I talked about it when they initially launched and it came out. We'll see if it's in the news. And if it's not in the news, remind me and I'll talk about it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff to come out of it, right? Like the iPhone getting USB-C for sure is another thing. And yeah, I mean, that's actually a great point, Stony. That's huge for the web. But unfortunately, if it's only supported in the EU, then it's like, But getting full progressive web app support, so all the progressive web app APIs that aren't supported on Safari, if the Chrome engine or the Firefox engine can run on iOS, now we instantly get a much more user base for our progressive web apps, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about Safari being slow with DuckDuckGo. Yeah. Yeah, I think you should at least keep it on your radar, because regardless of if you live in the EU or whatever else, you'll still be affected by it. And Milos, thank you for the resub. I'm doing all right. Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting one about web search rankings as well. So Google says HTML structure doesn't matter much for ranking. Now, I will admit, SEO is not something I've really ever paid attention to, because for the majority of my career, I have built internal tools. So tools that are not publicly facing and tools that don't need to be indexed by a search engine because they're running behind a firewall, or they're fully an app experience in the web browser. So there's a lot that I do not know about search engine optimization, but apparently it was a thing for a long time where people talked about specifically the structure of your HTML can change or influence your ranking in Google searches, and also potentially using semantic HTML that could influence your rankings. But according to this, It doesn't. So the structure doesn't matter. Semantics don't matter. I guess ultimately it's about content. Yeah. Did I hear about the new anchor attributes? I haven't. If you want to throw a link in the chat, well, you can't link on YouTube, but if you throw a link on Twitch, I can check it out. I still dream for the day we can build one application that works like truly cross-platform. Yeah. I mean, we're sort of there, but it's not the best experience. Like React Native tries and Flutter tries, but I don't know if it's fully there yet. To be clear, I wasn't advocating for burying your head in the sand. Just don't hold your breath waiting to see how this plays out unless you're deep in the iOS app development. Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, and I didn't mean to like call you out. I think there are other people that are in the chat that also potentially have the mentality of like, who cares? But I think you should care. Divs everywhere. Yeah. And what's up, Codex? Who says no structure has never mattered. They just read the raw text for content. I could believe it. Yeah, like why would the structure of your HTML influence a search ranking? Ultimately, it comes down to like what's the content of your website. Everything I learned at school is a lie. Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, semantics a lot of times also means better accessibility. And accessibility, I do think increases your search ranking. So there is that, but I think semantics alone aren't going to increase your search ranking. My SEO is non-existent, but I'm still the search result. Still the first result. Me too. Search any search engine for Coding Garden, and it's me. I'm the first result. And I have done nothing for SEO. I mean, I guess the best SEO is like a unique name and a good reputation, right? And that's what I have. Like Coding Garden is a unique name. There's not other channels or popular channels that have that name, and people like my stuff. So that's why I have good SEO, or that's why I'm at the top of the list. Yeah, semantics are only for SEO, also for accessibility. No divs everywhere. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Is like, don't do a bunch of divs. You should still be caring about accessibility, and ultimately that means like using semantic tags and stuff like that. Yeah, if anything, it matters having keywords at the top. Not just the top in styling, but literally at the top. No one else enjoys coding and gardening. Exactly. That's why I'm at the top. So yeah, this is fascinating. I think this also, this came up from Search Off the Record podcast. I didn't know this existed, but that's cool. They have a, what do you call it? Google has a podcast that talks about search and stuff, so that's awesome. But here's the thing, so I think you're saying client-side rendering and SEO. Coding Garden, for the longest time, up until about a year and a half ago, the Coding Garden website was a single-page application. It was not like generated, like client-rendered. Now it is. I switched to SvelteKit, and it's still technically a static app. Like I'm not hosting it on a server. It's still just static files. Like if you look at the rendered page, it actually has the content, but that's because I used the static adapter for SvelteKit. But for the longest time, this was like a Vue.js. I don't think I wasn't even using a build tool. It was just a Vue.js app that like loaded a bunch of stuff from an array to like build this grid. And I was still the top search result for Coding Garden. So you can still do like single page applications and stuff and still get pretty good search results or search rankings. I would personally think semantic tags make things more readable besides. Yeah. Well, ultimately, like the end users don't see your semantic tags, but screen readers do. So yeah. SvelteKit mentioned, yeah. I said the word SvelteKit. It's actually funny. Somebody made a PR that revamped the entire website. And I was like, okay, this is a huge thing to review. I ultimately ended up merging it, but I made a lot of changes afterwards. But it's one of those things. There's a lot of times people pull request my stuff, and it just creates more work for me because it's like I can't just merge exactly what you've done. You know, I gotta update it, fix it, and then I spend several hours on a thing I didn't even plan on working on. But that's life. I tried to redeploy my static Next.js site the other day, but still had to upgrade from node 14 to 18 because Vercel didn't support it. Fascinating. But if it's static, Vercel shouldn't care, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you go real static, like if you literally build it and then it's just static files, put it in the public folder, deploy that to Vercel, there is no server runtime at that point. It's only static files. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that's why, like maybe in Ched's package.json, it listed the node version, and then they had to fix it locally, and that maybe broke some other things. But yeah. Okay, I was reading this morning, and let's talk about. Okay, so first the link is titled "What's the current hottest trend in web dev for 2024?" And I want to talk about how negative Reddit is, because basically, like, it's a lot of times the comments on Reddit, especially if you're in like smaller niche communities, the comments are useful. I think it's like a community vibe. But where there are some places where the comments are just very negative and also like not taken seriously and stuff like that. Yeah, Reddit is very toxic. And so, you see this title, you're like, all right, what's the hottest trend? Let's talk about it. And like, at least the last I checked, the majority of the comments were just like meme answers. I think a lot of people are jaded right now as well, though. Like, a lot of people have been laid off or like having a hard time finding a job and stuff like that. But yeah. Doesn't Vercel use AWS internally after all? They do, but they hide the implementation details of that like very deeply. Like you have no control over that really. But ultimately, yeah, I think they're using AWS infrastructure. They're calling Next.js the new Gatsby and remix the Next.js. Wait, are you saying that remix is... I do think, though, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, but I do think remix is gaining in popularity because of the stuff happening with Next.js and like the app router and like the React server components thing. Yeah. All right. So what are the hottest web dev trends? I was reading some articles that were speaking on decades old technology, like it was just now starting to catch on or something. Figure I'd ask the masses here, what are the hot trends right now? Additionally, if it's a new trend, will it flutter out like so many others? Top post, I'm bringing back the under construction GIF or GIF. If you don't remember the days of the web, actually, yeah, this site is like an archive of under construction GIFs. Yes, and it is pronounced GIF. Is that a soft G or a hard G? GIF? Hard G. GIF. Yes, GIF is the proper way. I built websites on GeoCities that had had under construction signs on it. So yeah, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. I pronounce it as GIF, just like the creator of the graphics interchange format mentioned that they call it GIF as well. Well, okay. Here's the other thing, though. What do you call an alcoholic spirit that is made from juniper? Is it gin? No, it's gin. 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 So GIF. It's GIF. Yeah, but do you all remember the days of under construction GIFs? Obviously, actually, I'm just going to interchange it because that way you make everybody happy. Obviously, this is not going to be a trend. Nobody's using these anymore, but it is a really funny answer. Yeah, making a ChatGPT wrapper and selling it for absurd amounts. I mean, that's what people are doing for sure. Getting laid off. This is almost like a game of Cards Against Humanity. Like, the main card is the hottest web dev trend in 2023 is getting laid off. Like, yeah, okay. Call whatever you're developing blazing fast. Sure. Thank you for your interest in blank. We know you have plenty of experience, but so do other 900 applicants. Yep. We are 6 comments in from the top comments. We're sorted by best. I think maybe if we sort by top, will that be any better? It's not any better. It's not any better. But people are really jaded right now. I mean, I guess that's the other thing is like, there doesn't have to be like hot web dev trends. I mean, but there are some. I think there was at least one comment I found that had some good stuff, but let's see this one. So remote work is the hottest thing. So it was awesome when I was only the one who did it, and now it sucks I have to compete with the rest of you. Yeah, that is true. I mean, that potentially is why it's harder for people to find jobs as well, is like you're now not only competing, if you're working remotely, you're not only competing with people locally, you're competing with people all over. So that makes it much harder. CSS seems to be having a bit of a moment. It's gotten a lot of long requested features in the past couple of years, and it's made the whole language a lot more approachable. Yes to this. This is a real answer. And yes. So speaking of, we're going to look at the syntax snack pack because they have a bunch of links of news as well. But they recently did an episode on has, the has operator. I say recently. Was it like 2-3 weeks ago? Yes, but so Tailwind still uses CSS, and the new features being added into CSS will also get utility classes in Tailwind eventually. But yeah, so they did this episode on has, which allows you to select things based on the, what is it? Is it the descendant select? Not the descendant, the sibling selector? This. A relative selector. So it represents any element if any of the relative selectors that are passed in as an argument match at least one element. And so this has really wide support at this point. Full support across all web browsers. But you could do things like this. So any H1 that has a paragraph immediately after it, right? You've always wanted to do this. Like select every paragraph on the after an H1. This will do that. Yeah. So not only select that, but apply the style to the thing. Like it's like the reverse relationship. Apply the style to the thing that has that relationship, because you could style every p tag on the page that is a direct descendant of an H1. That's easy, but styling the H1 if it has a direct descendant that is a p, that's hard. That's hard, and this makes it super easy. Yeah, and so this is like, if an H2 comes after an H1, the H1 will have this much margin. Yeah, okay, yeah, so let's talk about some of the cool features in CSS. First of all, has, that's awesome. Next up is nesting. And I don't know where that's at. Let's see what the support looks like here. Look at that. Well, Firefox has it's supported. They support it, but no one has it. What do you mean by that? Like no one has the latest version of Firefox? They should though. It auto updates. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like if you weren't familiar with like using Sass, like I think the whole point of Sass for the longest time is like using features that aren't in CSS yet, but CSS has gradually gotten features that Sass gave us, like variables. Now we have nesting. Yeah, but nesting, if you're not familiar, basically it makes it so that you can still select things in the same way, but it's nicer to write your styles because you can have all the rules of the parent here and then all the rules of the child here instead of having them written separately. So instead of saying parent rule and then on the next line parent rule space child rule, now you can have it nested. So it's a lot easier to group your code. Yeah, so this would be like the new way with nesting, and then the old way would be to write it this way. So it's just a nicety because now your styles can be co-located if they're related in that way. But you can use this now. You don't even need a preprocessor or anything else. You don't need post-CSS or Sass or anything. You can just use nesting directly in all browsers. It looks like the only one that doesn't have full support yet is Samsung Internet Browser. Does not support nested rules that start with a type selector. But it'll get there. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. I think I talked about that about a year ago, is these days, if you just use post CSS with a bunch of plugins, it's much closer to what your CSS will eventually look like versus using an entire language differently. Or using an entire language like Sass instead of using something like post CSS, because post CSS is like the Babel of the CSS world. They give us plugins that let us use tomorrow's features today. So yeah, look, that's their tagline. Use tomorrow's CSS today. So for the longest time, if you wanted nesting, you needed something like post CSS, but now you can just use it directly. One of my overlays has a few hundred users, and the only people complaining were Firefox and Brave. And the issue was has, and Chrome just changed how it parsed nested CSS. Ah, I see. Yeah. Yeah, and it's better than Sass. Yeah, that's the other thing is because you're closer to the language itself, gradually, as these new features get supported, you can start to remove the plugins, and then you have less transpilation that needs to happen, so it's faster. And the output is way less than Sass, for sure. So that's a thing. All right, what else? I actually have like a whole list of CSS features that I've been gradually coming across. Yeah, this one is interesting. Ad? Oh, we're on an ad. I'll take a break. Quick ad break. In the meantime, what's up? Talk to me. How's your day going? Yeah, so CSS scroll is one, and then there's another one called view. And then also there's transition behavior and any hover. Yeah. Coding Ryan says, I've been using Udemy for years and learned nothing. Why is using free code camp instead of Udemy? Because I have failed as a programmer. Wait, what? Let me make sure I can. I understand what you're saying. So I've been using Udemy for years, learned nothing. Why is using free code camp instead of Udemy? Because I failed as a programmer. Let me know what you're asking, Coding Ryan. Like, are you basically saying that free code camp is better than Udemy and it's free? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Dialogue is cool. It's not CSS, but it is cool. It's an HTML thing. They deleted a sentence? Oh. Well, feel free to resend your message, Ryan. We've got about 1 minute left on the ads. What do I think about the recent hate about rappers? Please expand. What rappers? What kind of rappers? Rappers for what? LLM rappers. Oh. I think some of it is valid. So what you're saying is, I know it's rappers with a WR, so it's like they're rapping something. But I see what you're saying. Basically, just ultimately the thing that you're interacting with is just ChatGPT, is just the OpenAI API directly, but they're putting like a little spin on it to say that, oh, well, this is for this one specific use case or something like that. What is my opinion? First of all, ads are over. Welcome back, everyone. We are now answering this question from Underexed, who is asking, how do I feel about large language model wrappers? And so I think what they're saying is people that create things that are basically just the OpenAI API and ChatGPT, nothing on top of that. I think those at a certain point aren't going to make money. They're just going to cost money, right? And they won't last, right? So at a certain point, if the thing isn't that much more useful than ChatGPT itself, then that person's not going to be able to pay their API bill, and it'll go away. So I think anything that is good and useful and better than the ChatGPT interface or the large language model itself, if it has value, it's going to stick around. And so, yeah, I think it's fine. I guess that's my only opinion on it. The thing is, I don't know if I would necessarily create one. It is interesting that you can create like custom GPTs. Like you basically pre-prompt it. You give it a bunch of instructions to say that you're going to answer this type of question. And you could potentially also train it on a specific type of data, or not necessarily train it, but give it some embeddings of a specific type of data. And that way it gives more fine-tuned answers than the regular ChatGPT or the regular OpenAI API responses. So that stuff seems useful and novel, but yeah. Twitch needs new ads that matter to viewers. Yeah, they show the same ads to everyone. And what's up, Vittorio? Welcome in. I was going to build my own custom GPT tool. This is a big improvement. Yeah. I don't think it's the scroll bar thing. I'll show it to you in a second. Can I add Raycast extension for some Try Day Friday? Maybe that could be cool. We do a whole Try Day Friday where I'm not necessarily writing code, but I'm trying extensions and productivity tools or something like that. Yeah, at a certain point, so I gave my ChatGPT a custom instruction that says, I literally told it, I was like, answer my questions directly. Do not give any preamble. If you're answering with a code sample, only respond with the code sample, and some other stuff similar to that. I made that my instructions, because if you have ChatGPT Plus, you can add some custom instructions. And I felt like my answers got worse after that. I think the issue about that is that the reason it gives good answers, it's like it's pre-prompting itself. It's like a student answering the question by restating the question, but that then primes it for better answers. So yeah, it's interesting. It's in my family. My grandfather was a programmer, but he passed away. So I got into it. I think it's how I'm learning because I'm mostly hands-on and most of the courses on Udemy are outdated. Yeah, I think that's something to consider. I mean, some of the Udemy courses are up to date, but Free Code Camp absolutely stays up to date. And there's a big community around it as well, so it's a good way to learn. That's useful. A lot of people don't know how to do proper web searches. I guess that's true as well. Like I think that's basically my point then, is if the custom GPT or the wrapper, LLM wrapper, is useful and better than the thing itself, then yeah, why not? I don't have any issue with it existing. I literally today just used a Tailwind UI table component as an example and crafted a custom GPT that uses that template to generate a table based on sample JSON. Cool. New viewport Unix, trigonometry functions, better support for subgrid. Wow. Okay, Mark Boots has a bunch of stuff. Table generator? Oh, you created a custom GPT that makes tables. That's cool. Oh, writing a Raycast extension. I see. So Raycast is like the launcher, right? Yes. So I use Alfred. I've used it for a very long time. I bought the Power Pack version. And I haven't tried Raycast, so maybe I will. Yeah. As a large language model, I can't follow your preamble. Cool. Cool. Now, well, honestly, we might just do a whole day of like new CSS features because this is cool stuff. Okay, let me show you the ones that I found recently. So like scroll is one of them. I think scroll behavior was another one. This one is experimental. So as far as I know, it's only supported in Chrome. I guess I've started to care less about things that don't have full support yet. Because like technically, if you start using this, you're gonna need a polyfill or something else because you're gonna have Firefox and Safari users. But let's see what this does. It can be used with an animation timeline to indicate a scrollable element or scroll bar axis that will provide an anonymous scroll progress timeline for animating the current element. The thing about this is I do believe this will let us do things that the intersection observer lets us do, but with pure CSS, right? So, okay. Scroll to see it being animated. How's it being animated? I guess it gets its scroll progress and then, oh, I'm in Firefox. It won't work. That's the thing. I literally can't see the demo because I'm in Firefox. Use a real browser. But let's see what's happening here. So you give it an animation name, animation timeline scroll, block nearest. So as you scroll, it actually like rotates the square here. So fascinating. I feel like this could help with intersection observer things. Maybe not. Like the idea of you want to add a CSS class or add an animation when something comes into view. Yeah. Okay. So that was one of them. What was another one? Yeah, there's a thing called view. Just view. I choose to use the one browser that's not based on WebKit. I do. I'm making my life a lot harder. I will say when I switched back to Firefox, because I mean I've gone through various browsers, right? For the longest time, I used, so back in the day I used Firefox. So there's a long legacy of Firefox too, though, because I mean, isn't it based around on or around Netscape in some capacity? Which is like one of the earliest web browsers. But there used to be an extension for Firefox called Firebug. And Firebug is the basis for all web dev tools. So like when you open the dev tools here, that very much has a legacy coming back from Firebug, which is an extension that you could use inside of Firefox. So I used Firefox for the longest time. And then when Chrome came out, it was fast, it was snappy. So I switched to Chrome. And then probably like 2 years ago, I switched back to Firefox. What? Let's find this view thing. Yeah, it's an experimental CSS function that can be used with animation timeline. So both of them can be used with animation timeline. Maybe this is the one that would replace, yeah, we could use this instead of the intersection observer. So when this gets full support, you can basically say, start this animation or add this class when the element is 20% visible. And so you could do this with pure CSS. You won't need JavaScript anymore. So that will be cool. Let's see. I have this. And so this is saying like when the element is 50% visible, it is going to scale up. It'll go from 0 to 1. So that's awesome. Yeah, and again, it's not going to work here because it's only supported in Chrome. But this will be super cool. Like this has to make it into CSS. Like to be able to do this without JavaScript is huge. 50% from the top of the viewport. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, the View Transitions API, I think that has pretty good support though. Apparently not. I thought it was supported in Firefox. I guess it's not. Yeah, but we had Jake Archibald on the stream before JS Nation, and he talked about the View Transition API. Yeah. Was it really created in 2006? I guess so. They probably have a Wikipedia page. Yeah, I don't know, but it's a thing for sure. Have I heard about the new using keyword in JavaScript? I have, yeah. Seems fine. It's not anything like groundbreaking. It does the same thing that that happens in. Thank you, Zero Loop. Thank you for the resub. Again, I can't hear these notifications. I'll double check to see if I missed any. But like in the C# world, we have this idea of if you have something that needs to release its resources, you can wrap it in a using block, and then when the code execution leaves that block, it'll automatically dispose of the thing. It'll call the disposal class or whatever else. And so yeah, we get that and we're getting that in JavaScript, or potentially. I don't know what stage it's at. DVH units? I don't know if I've used those. Can I use view or intersection observer not from top down, but from left to right? Oh, I have no idea. You'd have to do some experimentation. Yeah, I have no idea. The initial idea that I have is like, all right, what if you just CSS transform a scroll container and then transform everything inside of it? So now, even though you're scrolling to the right, technically you're scrolling down. I have no idea. Well, thank you, Zero Loop. I appreciate the prime. Join me in the dark side. Are you? Oh, using Chromium? Yeah, I used Chromium for a while. Yeah. The iDispose pattern for sure. Height DVH would set your height to screen height, but always make room for the app bar. Oh, I like that. That's pretty cool. Dynamic viewport height. Cool. Yeah. So there's some other CSS things, but I do. So back to what we were talking about. What are we excited about in web dev, or what are some hot trends? CSS has gotten has gotten a lot of really cool stuff for sure. The current continuation of learning to be a better web dev and adding complementary skills to it. Sure. I mean, maybe we'll see that. Like maybe like there's a lot more people in the industry now that have been in the industry for a few years, and so they're looking to become better software developers, right? To learn more about like design patterns and various things about just making cleaner and more maintainable code bases. I could see that. I don't. Honestly, maybe the push of meta frameworks like Next.js and Nuxt and SvelteKit is kind of a move in that direction because it gives us a better base structure. Now, it doesn't do everything. I do think there's more opinions we should have about how we structure the folders in a code base and the files in a code base and stuff like that. Like right now in the web dev world, it's too much of the Wild West. If you go from project to project, there's just too many differences. It makes it really hard to onboard new devs if you're not following some convention or something like that. So maybe we see more of that. Yeah, the image got really big for some reason. It's a TypeScript feature, not a JavaScript feature. Oh, okay. I thought it was coming to JavaScript, but they already added it to TypeScript. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. There wasn't enough CSS for newcomers to learn. Hey, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it reduces the amount of JavaScript we have to write with the newer CSS features. It also potentially reduces our CSS bundle size with these newer features that have been added. So, yeah, it's more to learn, but at the end of the day, it's better for like writing less code and also like shipping less code. Does anyone know how long a Nuxt app should take to build? I feel like 30 seconds is too long. Yeah, there's probably something in maybe a dependency of some kind that's increased your build. When we were working on our SvelteKit app listed, we added a library for icons, and it made our build time like almost a minute. But the moment we removed that import in dependency, it was like super snappy. So there's probably something in there that's making it longer. It's stage 3 in JavaScript. Where is stage 3? Stage 3 is on here. Disposal, using, do you know what it's called? Yeah, I think it was Iconify. I think that was the one. Yeah, so you might be running into the same issue in Nuxt. Yeah, just try commenting out all the Iconify imports and see what happens. I have not used Temple OS. No. Explicit resource management. They might have fixed it since then. This was like months ago that we ran into that issue. Oh, thank you, LB Ashley, and thank you, Stony. Thank you for for spreading the good word of Coding Garden. Async generators. Using. Here it is. Yeah, here it is. Cool. It's stage 3. What's up, I am Slim? Are you working on a React Native thing right now? Is that why you're saying that? There are some good things about React Native. Yeah. Okay. Great. Any other comment? I mean, if you missed when we started reading this article, basically someone was asking about what are the hottest web dev trends, and all of the top comments are not helpful at all. I think the only useful one in there was about like new CSS features. Yes, as someone learning web dev right now, this comment section is really discouraging. Yep. The rustification. I could see it. You do see a lot of, so it's not, I mean, I guess you can consider it web dev. If you look at a lot of the tooling in the JavaScript and web dev world, a lot of it is being ported or rewritten in Rust so that it's faster. So yeah, the web dev world caring more about the performance of their build tools and CLI tools and stuff like that. So yeah, you are seeing that. And the possibility of using WebAssembly to write in Rust and then compile for the web. That's definitely a trend. Yeah, Rust and WASM. All right, we're done with this comment section. But those are some trends. Cool. Let's take a look at the syntax snack pack, see if there's any articles on here that we hadn't seen yet. Cool. Let's see, lazy git, a simple terminal UI for git commands. What is it? Yeah, Syntax has been pushing out a lot of good content on Twitter and TikTok as well. Lazy git. All right. You've already lost me because I think they're using Vim or something like that. Or is this lazy git? What does this do? Press space on the selected line to stage it. Press V to start selecting a range of lines. Okay. This tool is not for me. If you do not use VS Code, like if you're a command line editor kind of person, you probably would like this. Yeah, so if you use like Vim, this seems great. I have all of these features already inside of VS Code. And if you're not using VS Code, you could also use like the, there are various like Git Kraken and a few others that give you this kind of thing as a actual like desktop UI. Cool. Yeah, so it's a Git terminal UI. So you have things like for interactive rebasing and like squashing of commits and different stuff like that. So that's fun. Cool. All right. We go back and choose Remix if we could. Next.js app router migration, the good, the bad, and the ugly. An interesting look at moving to the Next.js app router from past Syntax guests Brandon and Bayer. Yes. There's been a lot of chatter about this too. I think ultimately the app router has like, and Finder the Ice Wing, thank you for the Prime resub. That's awesome. 18 months? Yeah. Also, did I miss any others? I think I caught these. Yeah, Milo, Sierra Loop, Eddie, thank you for the gifts. Finder, thank you for the resub. You have a source inject Trojan. I have no idea what that is. Yeah. Oh, Syntax is sponsoring you? That's awesome. Heck yeah. There, you have the, is it the Vue transition library that you have? Is that the one, Pablo? Okay. I don't want to read this whole article, but if you're interested in this, in someone's take on what it was like to migrate to the app router, this is probably good stuff. They're using the SvelteKit search params. Nice. I remember you asking about that on stream before. Like, I think you provided a code sample in the Discord. Nice. But yeah, if you remember, over on Coding Garden, I started using the app router when it was in beta, and I was trying to build a, yeah, so learning Next.js 13 beta. These were some really long streams where I was trying to build an app. Ultimately, I think I made the wrong choice to begin with, because I was building like a JavaScript, client-side JavaScript heavy app. It was a map app. And when you have a map in your web app, it's very JavaScript heavy. It's just going to be. There are ways to do it server rendered, but most of the time it's heavy client interaction. And my entire app was a map. So like, it didn't really even make sense to try and use the server render features of like the app router and stuff like that. And so I did not have the best time. And also we found some like weird caching bugs early on. So yeah, I'd be interested to know and hear about their migration, what they like, what they didn't like. Because from the title, it kind of sounds like they wish they would have just used Remix instead of Next. So that's funny. Cool. Oh, nice, BeMind. Someone went to start and they already did. Very good. Surf the web like it's 1999, featuring Netscape Navigator 3.0, now with HTML 3.2. What is this? Oh, nice. So if you're not familiar, NeoCities is a website where anybody can create. It's like the new version of GeoCities, the modern version of GeoCities. And Roga, thank you for the resub. 25 months. That's awesome. But you can create your own site here, and it's trying to bring back the idea of like GeoCities and people having like their own little unique websites and stuff like that. But apparently this is someone's unique website, Bill's World, where you have a Netscape running inside of the web browser. This is awesome. Bill's Worldwide Boutique. Welcome to my homepage. See, under construction. This is what we were talking about. This was all over the web back in the day. Check out my new MySpace page. Well. Cool. That's fun. Bill's Boutique Guestbook. We can sign their guestbook. Anyone ever have a site with a guestbook? I used to have a guestbook on like every site that I built. I had a site for my band in high school. We had a guestbook. I had a Calvin and Hobbes fan page where I like posted some of my favorite Calvin and Hobbes comics, and I had a guestbook there too. Yeah, that's fun. All right, what else we got? Montreal in Motion, a very cool 3D scroll effect done in pure HTML and CSS. Whoa! Look at this animation when I load the page. You ready? Wow! And then when we scroll, this is awesome. It's like it's coming up like this. Wow! And it's at the top too. Wow! Now this is cool. Is it useful? I don't know, but it really is cool. It's really cool. That's sick. I wonder how they did it. Yeah, I think that's the thing. If you prefer reduced motion or whatever else, like, yeah, you definitely aren't gonna like this. But it's cool. Gives me a headache. Sorry, I'll stop. All right. Cool. What else we got? I want this from left to right. I bet you can figure it out. Hot takes. What if I told you this is how roughly how many applicants are applying for one position for a company employing people hybrid? So you need to come in a few days a week in a city in Arkansas, USA. AR is Arkansas, right? Well-known companies in full remote positions likely see much more. So number of applicants for one open position. Software engineer, 164. Senior engineer, 37. Intern, 192. Where'd they get their numbers? Is this for one specific company? Or are they saying they did the numbers on a bunch of different companies and they're seeing this? But I could believe it. I could believe it. My wife is currently looking for a job, and it's tough out there. It's very tough out there. Yeah. All right, this one's from Scott. After sincerely trying HTMX, I've left with the vision of seeing most interfaces I use and wondering if they really need client-side JS beyond interacting with the server. CSS and HTML in 2024 will really picked up a ton of that slack. Yes. Ultimately, like, I think this is along with the trend of hybrid frameworks and like moving to server-side rendering and stuff like that. But CSS and HTML in 2024 have really picked up a ton of that slack. Dialog, popover, yeah. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with this though, because this requires a server. And for the longest time, I mean, and I still am, I'm a huge proponent of building things that can just live on a CDN. Right? They don't require any sort of server-side component. Obviously, at a certain point, you will need an API that like serves up data and stuff like that, but I'm worried that if we push too far, then we become too dependent on like our server-side running code. And I don't know how I feel about that. Because, I mean, one of the biggest reasons I got into web dev was the fact that you could build applications inside of the web browser. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's why I gave that caveat, is because if you do need some kind of custom data of your own, you're going to have to build a backend anyways. Or like a REST API of some kind to talk so that your client-side app can talk to. And the argument there is, well, if you just started with server-side rendering or something like HTMX, you could potentially build faster, have less client-side JavaScript. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not fully convinced. I do think there's a subset of applications that absolutely should be built this way. Like, I do think there's too much client-side JavaScript for the sake of client-side JavaScript. But I also believe that there are use cases for building something completely static that can run in a web browser that doesn't need a server runtime. But I am a fan of the trend of the things that didn't need to be client-side JS moving to the server. I'm okay with that. Hot take: emojis in a UI make it feel cheap. Maybe, but maybe that's the look you're going for. I don't know. Nice. Cool. Check out the Syntax Snack Pack. You can also subscribe to that mailing list for more. We're already an hour and a half in. Let's just see if there is any interesting links here on JavaScript Weekly, and then we'll jump into code Q&A. I feel attacked. Wait, about what I was saying? Are you using too much JavaScript, BMind? Is that the issue? Is Flutter still used? As far as I know. I mean, I haven't looked into it in a while, but as far as I know. Oh, I see, the emoji thing. I use emojis in a lot of projects. I use emojis in my commit messages. I think we've used emojis in UIs we've built on stream before, if we didn't yet have an icon library. So, yeah. All right, better JavaScript shell scripting with bun shell. I saw this, yeah, I saw this because ZX is the tool that I've looked at and I'm pretty excited about. And we've talked about this on stream before, but this will let you basically do like systems scripts with JavaScript codes. I'm using the eye emoji for password reveal buttons. Yeah. But if you've ever tried to do this in like Node.js, you know that you'd have to bring in like the child process internal module and stuff like that. ZX lets you have a file where anything that should be like a system command, you use $ with backticks, and the code will just work. So ZX is pretty slick. It comes from Google. But bun shell gives you a very similar thing, right? So yeah, if you want to like spawn a system process with Node, you need spawn sync or spawn async. But they now give you the same thing as ZX, which is pretty cool. And you can use this in Bun now. You don't have to install like an external library, which is pretty cool. So yeah, instead of having to bring in child process, you can just do that stuff directly. So that's pretty slick. Adonis.js v6 is now the time we try Adonis.js because people have been mentioning it over and over on my stream, especially when we were trying Laravel. So Adonis.js is kind of like the Laravel of the JavaScript world. But apparently, version 6 was recently launched. What do we get? They moved to ECMAScript modules. That's cool. They stopped relying on TypeScript compiler hooks. If you wrote this, it would compile to this, and now you don't have to do that. Type-safe routes and controller binding, cool. Type-safe routing is hot right now, especially with like TanStack router. But let's see. So earlier we used magic strings to bind a controller to a route, and honestly, when I was looking through the Adonis.js docs, this is the one thing that I was like, they could do better, because having these strings that don't have any type information around them could get cumbersome in a code base. Yeah, so this is a magic string. So this technically is string, but it maps us. It's a URL path. It maps to /posts. But now with type-safe, you pass in an array, you give it the controller, and you specify index. And so I'm guessing that this right here, you'll get type completion for, depending on what methods you have inside of your controller that you defined. So that's pretty slick. And you can lazy import them, so they only get imported if they're needed. Yeah. I haven't heard of Terry Davis. What's up, Pranjal? Welcome in. He has old live streams? Cool. Type-safe named middleware reference. I'd like to see that type definition. Type of key of type. Probably pretty complex, right? Type-safe named middleware reference. So yeah, Adonis.js is, think of it like the Laravel of the JavaScript world. It has a lot of opinions and conventions and ways of structuring your backend JavaScript application. Yeah. So before we had to do this. Now they have the middleware method. Slick. I like it. The routing looks just like Laravel. Starting with the v6, the name middleware are defined by referencing and using the middleware. Yeah, I have the JS emoji. Cool. Type-safe Adonis RC file. So we've moved from a JSON-based RC file to a TypeScript-based one, so you get better type completion. Type-safe event emitter, Vite integration, a new scaffolding system in code mods. This is looking nice. We should probably we should try out Adonis.js soon, because these things look exciting. This makes me want to try Adonis for sure. Are beanies popular in web dev? I feel like they are. I feel like they're potentially popular with people in my age group. Now, I don't reveal my age on stream, but I think people in my age group wear beanies. I don't know if it's web dev in general. Also, I live in a cold climate, and it is winter time, so that's why I wear beanies as well. Cool. Looks like Steve Kinney has a course on using Vite. QuickJS, the small embeddable JavaScript engine. So they built a tiny and complete JavaScript engine in C. It now supports ES 2023. Shaved my head and went bald now, so I can't wear beanies anymore. If you shaved your head, wouldn't you want a beanie to keep your head warm? I live in the USA. I live in Colorado in the USA. It's actually been pretty warm the past few days, but it is technically winter here. Fascinating. Let's look at Quick.js. It would slide off. I see. Get a smaller one? I don't know. This page is blinding. Let's see what else. ReactConf 2024 happens in May in Las Vegas. Should I go? Maybe I should go. This is the official one. Wait. Can you attend in person? This is all the pages. You can just sign up for notifications. There's no speakers, no ticket information. Is anyone familiar with like ReactConf that's happened in the past? Like, can you attend in person? Have they had an in-person one, or is it fully remote? Well, I guess if they say it's happening in Vegas, then you probably can attend. That's cool. Oh, I see, Pranjal. Yeah, I had not heard of him. When you've worked for a company and maybe hiring some new devs, you were looking if someone was going to university or was just looking for work experience. Were you looking if someone was going to the university or was just looking for work experience? Oh, it depends. So what you're talking about is somebody who's potentially self-taught, doesn't have a computer science degree, or maybe didn't even go to college at all, and has work experience, versus someone that only has a computer science degree. I think your interview process should reveal if they are technical enough and a fit for your team and a fit for your company, right? Like you can't just go by, did they go to a good university? You should interview them and see, like, do they know what they're talking about? So yeah, I would hire either, but it all depends on what they're capable of, because I do think you can be fully capable and not have a computer science degree or not even have a college degree, purely based on either work experience or learning and building out your portfolio to show that you know how to code. Yeah, I've worked with Angular before. Yeah, like right now, this is, I mean, I say full-time job. I'm still living off of savings, but this is mainly what I do. Yes. When you went to ViewConf last week, ask the creator of Pina which was better, Svelte, Writable Stores, or Pina. I didn't know he was the creator until after I asked. Oh wait, he's the creator of both? That's funny. Oh, you digitally went, yeah. All right, what else? Astro 4.2 came out. Let's see what's new in Astro 4.2. Experimental support for pre-rendering pages using the Speculation Rules API. Reworked routing. Oh no, they're the author of Pina, I see. Improved accessibility, customizable image optimization in Markdown. Nice. On the surface, doesn't seem like anything I'm excited about, but I'm sure it's good stuff. Yeah, I don't know what speculation rules are. Yeah, it's their internal API. Or is it? No, it's not. This is Chrome. The Speculation Rules API is designed to improve performance for future navigations. I see. So this is like pre-render and prefetch. Like you're telling the browser that, hey, the user will likely go to this page, so you can like preload it. Where's this supported? Not supported in Firefox. Okay. Puppeteer is using Chromium and a bunch of other releases. Great. This has been the news. Thanks everyone for listening and chatting with me. Let's take a quick break and then I'll start answering your code questions. And Ashley B, thank you for the Prime. I appreciate you. Okay. When I come back from the break, we're going to attempt to answer these questions. And Zach Rip, thank you for the Prime as well. Avi's asking how to integrate Firebase Google Auth in a Chrome extension. Naked Pies is asking, have I heard of Valid, and what are your thoughts on peer-to-peer topology apps? I haven't. I guess we'll look into it. Millen is asking, what are passkeys? Can we have a video on that? And Bread is asking, can top2vec be used with Python 3.12? Some of these I have no idea if I'll be able to answer, but I'll do my best. And if you want to ask a question, do !ask followed by your question. It can be about anything. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer it, but it could be about React. It could be about backend stuffs. It could be like a specific problem that you're trying to solve right now. It could be anything. Ask me anything. I'm going to take a 5-minute break. When I come back, I will start answering your questions. So in the meantime, let me leave you with a YouTube video. It's very rare that I have like a 5 or 6 minute video that I can show. We can go back in the Coding Garden archives. How long are shorts? YouTube shorts can be no longer than 60 seconds. And Hassan Ali, thank you for the Prime. And you've triggered a hype train. And Soge King, good to see you. We met in Amsterdam, didn't we? It's going all right. I was about to take a break, but now we're on a hype train, so I can't take a break. I guess we will do a speed run. You watched the URL shortening thing this morning? Nice. All right. Let's do a 7Q speed run. I'm going to solve as many 7Q code katas as fast as possible. For sure. I'll let you know. I don't know yet if I'll be at JS Nation or React Summit, but I'll let you know for sure. All right, let's go. Most completed. Approved. Katas I have not trained on. And let's do... I mean, we could do 6. The thing is, 6Q. Some 6Qs take me like 10 minutes to solve. So let's do 7Q. We're going to solve as many as possible. Okay. Let's also set a stopwatch. I'm going to continue solving, and thank you, BMind. Thank you for the Prime. I'm going to continue solving problems until the hype train is over. So here we go. First up, even numbers in an array. Given an array of numbers, return an array of length number containing the last even numbers from the original array. I see, so from the end. So we're given a number like 3, and we want the last 3 even numbers from the end of the array. That's a weird one. Okay. If I'm thinking just like how to solve it really fast, we could literally just reverse the array and then just grab the first 3. I guess we don't even need to reverse the array. Here's what we'll do. So we will have a result array. So this is going to be the first in numbers. It starts off as empty. We'll then have a for loop that goes from the end to the beginning. So we'll start it off at array.length -1. And we want to continue looping while I is greater than or equal to 0. And on each iteration, we'll decrement I once, right? So start at the end, which is -1. Decrement. When it's 0, we still do the thing. And then when it's -1, we break out. Great. We will say if array at I is even, so mod2 is 0, then we're going to push it into the result array. If the result array.length is equal to the number, we return the result array. And if we made it out, we're done. That's it. That's all we got to do. Expected 86482 deeply equal 468. All right. So instead of pushing, I'm going to shift, which will put it into the beginning of the array. Unshift. Yeah. Okay. So that should do it. Awesome. We got one down and we're 2 minutes in. That took me 2 minutes. That's crazy. All right. Next one. Switcheroo. And I'll remind you, the hype train. We will keep it going as long. I will keep solving problems as long as the hype train is happening. All right. Given a string made up of letters A, B, or C, switch the position of letters A and B. Change A to B and vice versa. Leave any incidents of C untouched. Okay. My immediately thought on how to solve this is first replace A with something else. Unstony, thank you, Stony. Thank you for the 5 gifted. So replace A with like a weird character, and then replace B with A. That's what I'll do. Let's see if we can do that. So if I do X, I'm going to do replace all A with, let's say, just an exclamation mark. And then after that, we'll replace all B with A. And then after that, we'll replace all exclamation mark with B. Now, obviously, this is not the most performant, but it works, and that's all that matters. So, sweet. All right, we got it. Next one, filter the number. The number has been mixed up with the text. Your goal is to retrieve the number from the text. Can you return the number back to its original state? So your task is to return a number from a string. You'll be given a string of numbers and letters mixed up. You have to return all numbers in that string in the order that they occur. Again, we can use a regular expression for this, right? So if I do value.match, I can do a regular expression that matches any digit, 0 through 9. What does that give us? I want it to be global. So it gives us all the numbers. Yeah, so it gives us an array of matches, and then ultimately we want to join it all back together into a string. So I should be able to just return this, join on the empty string. Okay, oh, but it needs to be a number. I see. So join it and then parse it. Are we going to run into any like really large or weird numbers? We're not. Great. That's it. We did it. Let's keep going. So sum of triangular numbers. Your task is to return the sum of the triangular numbers up to and including the nth triangle number. So a triangle number is any series of numbers obtained by continued summation of natural numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And so then the next row would be all the way up to, I don't know, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Okay. If they give us 4, then we need to find the fourth one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Add up all of the, oh, this is this is involved, because then we need the last number of each. Oh, you're right. I could have selected on just digit. And thank you, Drop Mania. Thank you for the 3 gifted. I appreciate that. Okay, so we have to calculate the triangle and then add together the last values. I have a feeling that if I just do it kind of like brute force, like calculating, it could be too slow. But that's what I'm going to do. So we'll have our triangle array. Let me just have this as an example here. Yeah, you're awesome, Dropmania. Thank you. Okay, so we have our triangle. It starts off with 1. And then while the triangle length is less than n, we're going to add the next row of the triangle. So we'll have the start, which is going to be triangle. And actually, we're going to do an array of arrays at -1. So grab the last array and then grab the last value in that array. And that will be our starting value plus 1. And we need the length. What length is this going to be? Use dynamic programming? I don't know how to do this with dynamic programming. The last values increment by 1 every line. 1, 3. What do you mean? Is there a pattern? Add 2, add 3, add 4, add 5. Oh, okay. We actually don't have to. Okay, I see. It's way easier than that. Okay, so our start is 1. But I guess we also have to know the length. Okay, just let me brute force it. Let me just okay, because at this point we have the oh, thank you, Stony. Thank you for the gift. We have the previous row. And then we want a for loop. Let's actually say, let's call this the next row, which starts like this. And then while the next row length is less than the previous row length, we're going to push into the next row. Grab the last value, add 1 to it. Bob! No, I didn't. Come on, Bob. I haven't seen you in so long. You just show up and drop 25. Thank you. You're way too kind. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. All right, this one's for Bob. This one's for Bob. Does this make sense? It probably makes sense. Push it into the triangle, the next row. And then we'll just log the triangle. Let's see what this gives us. Never said keep programming. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's completely wrong. Okay. We should have seen 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Also, I gave this the wrong name. This should be previous row. All right. Less than previous length plus 1. Got it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, etc. Okay. We're doing it. We're calculating the triangle. Now that we have the triangle, we need to sum up the values on that very last row. Okay, so now here we can say, let's sum the last row. So we're going to return the last row in the triangle. We reduce it to the sum. That's it, right? Maybe we want n minus 1. No, we don't. Wait, do they want the sum of the row? And Damon, thank you for the prime. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Moo. I appreciate that. Okay. They want the sum of the row, right? No, they want the sum of the triangle numbers. Okay, that's why this is harder. Okay. Okay, so we can't just sum the last row. We need to iterate over the triangle and grab the last value of each. So we'll just no, we can reduce the triangle. So yeah, okay. Reduce the whole triangle, which is an array of arrays. This will give us each array, and we want to grab the last value in that array. And we start the whole thing off at 0. This is it, right? But then we still want to go to n. Length is less than or equal to n. I need a test that is much shorter. A never-ending speedrun. I mean, I'll keep solving them if you guys keep gifting. Like you know. Hey, Brooke Cirker, thank you for the raid. Welcome in, raiders. We're in a hype train right now, so I am just solving as many code wars, katas as I can while the hype train is happening. As soon as the hype train is over, I'm going to stop solving these. But yeah, good to see you all. Welcome in. Yeah, and what were you working on, Brooks? Someone doing it? Shout out, Brooks. If you like Rust, you definitely should check out Brooks. So they were... What were you doing? Docker for web developers. Oh, very cool. All right, ad break starts in 3 minutes. We gotta get this done. Okay, what I want to do is I want to test this with 4, because we know the value for 4 should be 20. All right, that means I didn't go. I went too far because I should have stopped earlier. And so now we need to make sure that for each array, we add 1 plus 3 plus 6 plus 10. Oh, this should be S. Where did N come from? Yeah, this should be S. That's why. Let's log in. Why this? Honestly, doing it this way just made it way too hard on myself. I should have just done it the easier way. Expected 1 to equal 0. I guess if they pass in 0. Oh, if they give us a negative number. Okay, that's why. So if n is less than 0, return 0. That's why. Okay, cool. It passed those tests. Will it pass the big tests? Nice. All right, and we didn't time out either. So okay, we figured that one out. Yeah, I will say my solution way too convoluted. As you can see, I guess there's just a simple formula you can use. You don't even got to do a thing. And Juicebox, thank you for the gift. I appreciate that. Wait, am I missing Twitch chat messages? But Moo, thank you for the bits. Okay, let's keep moving. I'll do my best to not make a convoluted solution. So simple beads count. 2 red beads are placed between every 2 blue beads. There are in blue beads. After looking at an arrangement below, work out the number of red beads. Yeah, I mean, the way I did it was just like solve the problem, but I think for really large numbers, my solution would have used like way too much memory. So yeah, if you figure out the math formula, it's a lot easier. It's over. It's over. Ugh. Okay, how many did I do? That was probably the worst speed run. That was 16 minutes, and I only got what 1, 2, 3, 4. I only got 4 done in 16 minutes. And thank you, Brooks. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody else for the hype train. I hate to leave like the moment we got rated, but we're in an ad break, and I'm gonna take a break. But I'll be back soon. I'll be back. Let's say I'll be back in like 4 minutes, and we are going to answer your questions. So if you have any code related questions, type !ask followed by your question. It'll show up on this site, and I will do my best to answer it. But yeah, 4-minute break, and then we'll answer your questions. And in the meantime, go follow Brooks if you haven't yet, because he's doing cool things. Okay, 4-minute break. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Welcome back, everyone. We are going to answer some code questions. So if you have a question, !ask followed by your question. It'll show up on this site, and I'll do my best to answer it. First question comes from Default GN, who says, "What is your favorite snack?" So I haven't talked about this on stream, but I've been eating a plant-based diet for like almost 2 months now. And so like no animal products at all. And I really like salt and vinegar chips. And for whatever reason, I'm craving them a lot more now that I'm not eating meat or dairy. So yeah, salt and vinegar chips. That's definitely my favorite. Or anything salt and vinegar flavored. Like I also like, there's like these almonds that have salt and vinegar flavoring on those. I like those too. But yeah, I could eat a whole bag of salt and vinegar chips and then feel really bad afterwards. But yeah, I really like salt and vinegar chips. All right. Avi is asking how to integrate Firebase Google Auth in a Chrome extension. We're gonna have to like research this a little bit. Let's see. And Default says, I've actually considered going plant-based lately. Depending on where you live in the world, it can actually be very easy. So like I live in Denver, Colorado, and grocery stores carry so much stuff that's like plant-based. More and more restaurants are offering plant-based options. Yeah, and I've been taking a multivitamin as well. Yeah. So yeah, I think now more than ever, it's easier to be plant-based. All right, so Firebase Auth in a Chrome extension. Now, the idea here would be like, all right, you've implemented a Chrome extension like this, but you want people to log in. Yes, yeah, SoCal would be so easy to do. I mean, what's also interesting is like the amount of like junk plant-based food you can get. Is like around here, there's a place called Meta Burger, and it's technically it's vegan, but it's still trash. Like it's deep fried, and yeah, not good for you. But it's still plant based, which is cool. And then a lot of especially if you snack a lot, you can get a lot of like interesting plant based snacks. But yeah, let's say we're implementing a Chrome extension, and we want somebody to be able to log into that Chrome extension with OAuth. The thing to think about is like, OAuth requires like a redirect. So like you need to launch them to a page, and then they need to be redirected back to a site. But I think that's if I'm imagining it correctly, and I don't know, Avi, if you're still listening, I think this is how I would implement it. Like you would still need your own backend to handle the OAuth flow, and then your own page that they get redirected back to. But your extension should have permissions. It should ask for permissions to read and interact with the specific website that they're going to get redirected back to for the OAuth flow. So that way, like in your Chrome extension, you click login. That then takes them to a website, closes the extension, redirects them to the OAuth, and then when OAuth redirects them, you take them to a site that you're in control of, and your extension can detect that. And then because it can detect that, it should have access to like read the token from the query parameters or something like that to then internally inside the extension now make the exchange with your backend to get like a token that says that they're logged in. That's how I would implement it, but I don't implement a lot of Chrome extensions, so maybe there's a better way to do it. I do know you mentioned like Chrome extension OAuth flow. And what's up, ImFat? Welcome in. Yeah, Auth 2.0. Authenticate users with Google. And is this? Yeah, it's about extensions. Oh, this is even better. I mean, I don't know if this API is supported across all web browsers, but it looks like you can create a tab that you are in control of. Reserving a single ID during extension development. And then if you have an extension ID, you can redirect somebody back to the ID of your extension, which means you don't even need like a hosted web page to redirect them back to. Fascinating. I will say, if this is like Chrome specific, you might not be able to do it that way, but the way that I mentioned should work across web browsers. So let me know if it works, Avi. And Avi has created a bunch of extensions. If you check out avi12.com, you can see all of the browser extensions that they've created, including this Twitch channel points bonus collector. If you install this, it will automatically click the channel points bonus button when you're on Twitch. They have a few other cool extensions as well. Thanks for your question, Avi. Actually, is my site borked? Give me a second. Okay. This question comes from Make It Pies. They are asking, have I heard of Valid, and what are my thoughts on peer-to-peer topology apps? I don't know much about peer-to-peer topology apps. I do know, or not that I know, but like for a while it was like more of a, it was definitely a trend to start looking into like how can you build applications that work peer-to-peer that don't necessarily like require a server. So Valid is an open source peer-to-peer mobile first networked application framework. Cool. Valid and valid identification. Valid. Valid allows anyone to build a distributed private app. Fascinating. And so one of the things you would do with like peer-to-peer is use WebRTC. Because WebRTC is built into web browsers, and this allows you to do peer-to-peer communication between browsers. So you can have two clients both on the same web page, and now they can interact with each other without the need for a server. Like you technically need a server to do the initial handshake so those two clients can find each other, but WebRTC has support across most browsers. I guess the longest holdout was Safari. But I do believe they have better support now. Like RTC peer connection, we can see where this is supported. Pretty good support. There are some internal things that aren't necessarily supported across web browsers, but like the base WebRTC API has pretty good support across web browsers. And this will let you do peer-to-peer communication. The thing to think about though, like if you don't have a server at all, it's like how can you persist state in a peer-to-peer application that doesn't involve a server at all? And I've tried to think about this where like basically each peer that connects to the app potentially stores their state like in local storage. And then as long as their browser tab is open and they're connected, any other peer that connects potentially could be sent that state. And now instead of needing a server, basically all of the peers that are connected to each other hold on to the state of the whole application. And like, obviously it breaks down the moment one person disconnects, or the moment that everyone disconnects, because then you've lost the ability to share that state when a new peer connects. But that's almost like you could implement a server that is also a peer, and its only purpose is to just sit there and add persistence. I guess, I don't know. I'd be curious to see what Valid gives you. They give you a networking topology. Yeah, can anyone see exactly, Andy? It's like you get on like Discord or IRC. He was like, yo, can you guys just open your browser so I can see what's happened since I was gone? Yeah, congrats. You've invented torrents for sure. And like torrents are peer-to-peer, and actually like WebTorrent is a thing too. Like there's actually a WebTorrent client that can work inside of a web browser. I don't know if it's still the case, but it used to be that only the torrents being shared over WebTorrent could be accessed in a browser. The regular torrent network wasn't necessarily accessible, but it might be at this point. Yeah. So if you do !ask, it'll show up on this website. So do !ask followed by your question, and I'll get to it. But yeah, I have not really looked into peer-to-peer topology at all. The most that I've done is implementing video chat with WebRTC, and that was nice because we didn't have server costs, and also it was a healthcare app, and so dealing with, if you were to involve a video server in between the clients connecting there to like a telehealth app, that server needs to be really secure and locked down because you're basically relaying video and health information about the patients that are connected. But if you do it completely peer-to-peer, then all of the chat messages, all of the video data is only transferred between the client and the healthcare provider that's connected on the site. So that's my experience with it. I think ultimately it's a hard thing to do. Like, it's hard to build apps that are fully peer-to-peer, so which is why they're not as prevalent. But with everything being moved to more like centralized locations, like, it's funny because I used Discord as an example earlier when I was like, yeah, so somebody says in Discord, hey, open the site so I can get the latest messages. Discord is an example of centralizing, right? Everyone has now using Discord for their chat messages, and if Discord ever goes down or they decide to shut off like free servers, we're gonna be like pretty out of luck. So a lot of the things we do, we're trending towards using like more centralized services versus more peer-to-peer stuffs. So yeah, it's interesting to think about. I haven't thought about it recently or done much with it. So if you asked a question, do exclamation mark here, and it'll bubble up. I'm trying to answer the questions mainly from people that are still in the chat and here right now. Did I make peace with Svelte? Yeah, let's talk about this. Because if you remember a few months back when the Svelte v5 beta was, at least the initial idea about runes came out, I did give my take on it. But if you remember, like, you can go back and watch this video. I wasn't even that mad at it. Runes, yeah. The thing I was mad at, not the thing I had the most beef with, was a lot of the simplicity of Svelte felt like it was being taken away. That was my main criticism, and they have responded to that criticism because I wasn't the only one that had that criticism. It's actually interesting to see that if you look at some of the latest info about like Svelte v5, some of the stuff that was like really cumbersome early on, they've added built-in helper methods that make it a lot easier. And if you remember, there was somebody that even created a package, or it was like an imaginary package called like Runify or something like that, where you could write your code in the old way, run it through Runify, and it would add the runes onto it so that it becomes like the new rune way. And it's like, well, if Svelte is already a compiler, why couldn't they just do that to begin with? And I think they are. Like, if you look at like Svelte v5, let's see if we can look at the blog. Svelte 5 preview. I forget where I saw it. Maybe it was one of the videos that Rich Harris did, but it was basically like they added new things to the to the API or to how you build things with it that just made it a whole lot easier. Yeah, are there? Where do I find more info on it? Are there docs? I know there was the like runes blog post, but where can I go to learn about the newer things that have been added and like, I guess, like what's changed? There's a docs section here. Docs. Okay. Yes. This. I think the fact that you can push into an array is beautiful. I'm pretty sure if you look at early v5, like I think like deeply nested state got really cumbersome really quick, and I think they fixed that. I don't know if this is the best example though, because these are just like primitives, but I think like having nested objects, it's also like something would happen. I guess the other thing to notice is we can use pop and push. Like we've been asking for this in Svelte for the longest time, right? Like just being able to use the built-in methods, and Svelte being able to go in and say, oh, well, that is actually a modification of the array, and then making it so that causes a re-render or a view update. We've wanted that for the longest time. So this is huge. Being able to do this is huge. And early on, like with the very first release of Svelte v5, I tried implementing a more complex to-do app with like nested objects in the to-dos array, and it got really complex really quick because like each nested object needed to have its own like state rune, yeah, and it got crazy. But the fact that this code now works in V5, I'm happy. This is awesome. I guess the only criticism I have is when the runes was announced 4 months ago, it could have been better communicated that the Svelte team is open to feedback and we will gradually fix things. It very much felt like when runes was announced, it was announced in a way that almost felt like a product launch. It almost felt like, this is how we're doing it, let's go. But obviously it wasn't. Like, it still needed work, and they fixed it accordingly. So that's awesome. But that would be my only complaint, is the way that they initially announced it and pushed it out just felt like we didn't have any say and there wasn't going to be any more work done on it. But obviously there has been. Yeah, and I think Pablo was mentioning it's proxied state. Yeah. Yeah, it's still in alpha. Yeah, it's still like, it's not even beta yet. This is cool. It's a little additional helper that lets you freeze the state. So it's opt-in to use the runes, yes. And at least for version 5, that's how it's going to be. If you use any rune in your script, that component must only use runes. If you don't use a rune and you use like the reactive declaration, like with the $:, that component cannot use runes. So yeah. So it's opt-in. It's like, if you choose to use it, you get to use it. But do know that like this is their path forward. So if you're wanting to have like future-proofed code, you probably should use the runes, because like in version 6, or I don't know when they're going to deprecate it, but eventually they will deprecate reactive declarations. So yeah. There's a derived helper. I don't know if I guess this is like computed, isn't it? Cool. You know what would be really cool to see is my autocomplete UI that I've been implementing, implemented with runes, because we absolutely ran into the scenario where if you're using reactive declarations, it gets tricky really quick to try and figure out. And also, you can introduce circular dependencies and like circular state updates very easily with reactive declarations. And so if you go back to the stream where I was implementing this, it took us a while to figure out, all right, what's the best way to implement this so that we don't have like an infinite loop of like state updates? And that's basically what runes are here to fix. They are opt-in observability. So that way, instead of assuming that everything is observable, you only mark the things observable that need to be, and you have better control over updates and how things depend on each other. Because yeah, this was one example of debouncing. So we have an input that someone can type into, and then as they type after a specific debounce, we call an API. And so when the input changes, we call set debounce filter, update the abort controller, set the debounced value, and you can see here that this is dependent on the debounced filter value. So early on in our implementation, like this reactive declaration just kept getting called over and over again because we didn't have it exactly right. I think I have other implementations here too. Like, I think this might have been the one, yeah, because I was trying to bind the filter, it got really tricky. But then ultimately we decided, all right, let's just not even use two-way data binding. Let's just use on input so that we can control the binding ourselves. And then we also determined that if we just use the await thing, I'll show you in a second after this break. This implementation doesn't use reactive declarations at all, and that's because we can use this nice little await thing, which is fascinating, right? Because this is a method that will return a promise, but it is dependent on the debounced filter value and the abort controller signal. So if either of those two things change, this is going to re-render, fire off the API request, and we can show a progress bar while that's in progress. And then when the promise resolves, we can do something with the result. If there was an error, we can do something with it. And if you just loaded the app, will show a message there. And so not using reactive declarations at all was actually like some of the cleanest code here, because we can just use the await block inside of our template. But yeah, no beef with with Svelte and runes. I'm happy that they made changes that are going to make it more usable and better, right? That's ultimately what we want, right? Like initially, it kind of felt like a step back for Svelte, because it's always been so straightforward and easy and less boilerplatey. And I'm happy they made some updates. Can you answer my question that I asked in the help forum about deploying with Git? Yeah, let's take a look. Let me open up Discord. Is it data or data? Either. I think I say data more than I say data. Yeta? Razorson, were you the one that asked the question? Yeah, it was. Okay. So Razorson has a question here on the help forum. If you have questions and I don't get to answer them today, the Discord is definitely a place to ask as well. But let's see what their question is. I have a website deployed on Vercel, and it's configured to make a new deployment once a new commit gets pushed to the main branch. I also have a dev branch where I work on new features. The problem is sometimes I quickly want to change something, and I commit to main directly instead of committing to dev and then merging the dev with main. And when I do that, the dev branch needs to be merged with main so that I can work on an updated dev branch. I am following. Okay. Is it the best way to develop and deploy? If not, please let me know what the best way is. Or datum. A datum is a single data, right? Datum or datum? I don't know. When I merge main to dev, the merge is also considered as a commit, and one of my branches is always behind the other one. Do you also have a way to fix it? Thanks. All right. Yeah, so Sirius responded, using a single dev branch and merging from main works, but can have problems when you have more than one developer working on the code. What I do is have a branch per feature, forked from the main branch, and then it merges back into main when I pull requests. Yeah. I've been thinking about it, to be honest, but as I said, sometimes I commit directly to main when I want to change a small tweak, and then the dev or the feature branch needs to be updated as well. Yeah, it's really just a matter of preference. I think ultimately, if you're working on a team, doing the feature branch workflow seems to work well enough, because then no one can ever push directly into main. You always have the feature branch that then needs to be merged in, even if it's just like a small fix. You have the added benefit of, now that you have that feature branch, you can also make a pull request into the dev branch. And so now everything stays up to date. So if you work on that feature on a separate branch, merge it into main, and now you don't need to merge main back into dev. You can just merge that feature branch into dev. Does that make sense? But I would agree with that. That's probably the most seamless way to do it. I will say it's a little more cumbersome, because at that point, you're not pushing directly to main. You're still having to create a feature branch, feature branch that you then have to pull request into main. I have a whole video where I talked about this. Also, how is my audio? Because I see it gets in the red a lot. Am I peaking for anyone? Do I sound like really loud for anyone? Yeah, I think the main issue that Razorson is working is sounds good here, but I have you on speaker. Okay, that should be fine. I'm mainly just worried about if I have too much gain and then it gets crackly. But yeah, as long as it sounds okay. But yeah, this is the main thing that Razorson wants, though, is that this thing needs to be merged into main, but it also needs to be merged into your dev branch as well to keep it up to date. This is a branching image I made a while back to talk about feature branch workflow. So like every feature you work on has a feature branch, and then all of those are going to be pull requested back into develop. And then anytime you want to release, you create a release branch, and then that release branch gets merged into so like the release branch will have a specific version number on it. So now you have like a snapshot in time of that version release, and then that gets merged into your branch that's literally called release, which represents the current release. And then if everything's good there, you merge that into master. But I think kind of what you're talking about as well are like one-off fixes or like hot fixes, and that can be done as well. But ultimately, you create your branch from the current release, right? So like if I have this one little thing that I want to add that needs to get into production now, that I don't necessarily want to have in just waiting in dev for the next release, you branch off of the current release, merge that feature into that release. So like this would have been branched off of ABC, which is the current release. You branch off of that, add your feature, and then merge that in. But now, because this is a branch, it could be this thing could be merged into dev as well. So basically, you merge it in both spots. But this then allows you to do the hotfix, so that way you can deploy it to prod. So yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah. So the link to that image is in the description of that YouTube video. You can hear me talk about it more, that whole process in the YouTube video as well. I would say if you get used to that, it's probably better, a better learning experience as well, because eventually if you are working on a larger team, a lot of teams work that way. So that could be a way to convince yourself that it's worth the trouble. I got to do it for the YouTube views, right? I mean, that video is like almost 5 years old. It has like 69,000 views. A lot of people found it useful. Yeah, when I work alone, generally I commit to main unless it's a big feature. If I have multiple branches, I just merge into one and then merge them back into the other. Yeah. The triangle problem was neat. So you can't share links on YouTube, but if you come over to Twitch, you can share a link there. I'd be happy to look at your solution though. Where'd you get that gold kappa? It's also good with preview deploys because you get to have to deploy with your feature. Exactly. So yeah, if you have that set up with Vercel, you can actually get to preview the feature in as a deployed app before merging it in. I'm out here stealing the gold kappa. It's nice. I'm using that branching workflow for more than 10 years. Is there another way to do it? I think there are variations of it. I think that's ultimately what it is. It's like, it's variations of that workflow. I will say my diagram that I created comes from the classic article, A Successful Git Branching Model. They have their own diagram here and talking about it. Yeah, so Phallic Martin is mentioning trunk-based branching is another main approach. Yeah, I haven't heard about trunk-based branching. All right. Thank you for your question. Milan is asking, what are passkeys, and can we have a video about that on Friday? I don't know if I would do it on Friday. I mean, if there was enough interest. I first heard about passkeys on Syntax Podcast. They had a guest maybe a week or two ago that was talking about passkeys. Yeah, a passwordless feature. I still don't think I understand it. But you can check out that podcast episode. Now, are passkeys something that like MDN talks about? Yeah, is it? Yeah, the Web Authentication API. It's an extension of the Credential Management API that enables strong authentication with public key cryptography. Passkeys should be basically log into websites and how you unlock your phone. Cool. So like you have a trusted device and a website can interface with that trusted device to say that, yes, this is you and let you log in. So without needing a password. Is that accurate to say? Because I know there are those like USB devices you can get that they require like your fingerprint or you to touch it that will then like give you like a one-time code or something like that. So yeah, this uses asymmetric cryptography instead of passwords or SMS text for registering, authenticating, and multi-factor auth with websites. This has some benefits: protects against phishing, reduced impact of data breaches, invulnerable to password attacks. Yeah, because I think ultimately if it requires you to have a device, that's awesome. It is your point of failure though, because if you lose the device, then you might potentially lose access to the services that you had. I guess you also have like recovery keys as well, but that's great because you need the device to now log into a site. There is no way to brute force a password because you literally need the device to be able to allow the login. You store the public key, if I remember correctly. So basically, yeah, you have a trusted device, which most of the times is your fingerprint reader. Yeah, like our phone, like mine, I use my fingerprint to log in, so sure. And your apps can also have biometrics on them. So if you have the passkey app where all that stuff is stored, it could use your fingerprint. I guess this could integrate with the biometrics API, which is also supported in web browsers. But yeah, I'll say like I don't know enough about it. I'd have to do more research. And I don't know if it would be a try day Friday, because I also don't know like what's the browser support here. For the basics, it's all right. Only supports USB UTF tokens. I would have to get a USB UTF token thing. And then yeah, so literally the browser could ask for your biometrics. You give it, and then that logs you into the site. So yeah. All right, so if you asked a question, exclamation mark here, it'll bubble up. If you want to ask a question, exclamation mark ask in the chat, and it'll show up on this site. Yeah, I think you have to have the server that does the exchange, right? I'll do my best to answer this one. So Expert T is asking, what are your thoughts on the current job market and all the layoffs? Do you think the market will recover? Is it still possible to get a job as a self-taught developer, or do I need a CS degree? All right, let's one at a time. What are my thoughts on the current job market and all of the layoffs? It's hard out there. I know a lot of people that are searching. My wife is searching. I know a lot of people that have been laid off. My thoughts are, it's tough. I feel for you all. That's like, it's tough. Second, do I think the market will recover? I do. If you look at history, the history of humans, we typically recover. Now, what could you compare this to? I don't know. I don't know where in the lens of history can you say, oh, well, this is similar to that, and this is how long it took to recover back then. And there are so many factors that go into like when and how it will recover, because the other aspect of it is now you potentially have like AI that's also taking jobs. Now, obviously, as developers, we know the nuances of that, and we know it's not as simple as just saying, oh yeah, AI is going to take our jobs. But it's now potentially possible for less developers to do more, right? And which means that less developers have jobs because one developer can do more than was required before. So that's another aspect of it. I'm hopeful that it will recover. I am, but I don't know. And is it still possible to get a job as a self-taught developer, or do I need a CS degree? I think anything's possible. Anything's possible. But the thing you have to think about is if you are competing with people that do have a computer science degree, it's sad to say, but a lot of companies prefer that just because it's an easier indicator that says somebody might know how to code or might be a good programmer if they have a computer science degree. Obviously, we know that that's not true because we know that self-taught developers are just as capable. But if you see yourself losing out in the job search, sometimes it could come down to that, and it's unfortunate to say. Now, do I think you should stop and go get a computer science degree right now? I don't think so. I think you should especially if you're not employed right now, keep working on your portfolio. Like, try to do some freelancing or side projects if you can, but like keep coding and keep building out your set of things that you can show to a developer that shows that you know how to code. And especially, I mean, this message goes out to anybody that doesn't have a job right now. You should still be coding, right? You should be preparing for interviews, building things, keeping your skills up to date. Absolutely. So yeah, I realize that I have a very non-answer because like, layoffs are bad. I hope it recovers. And yes, you probably will have a better chance at finding a job if you have a computer science degree, but I still don't think it's needed. And I still think you can find places that will see you for who you are and not care about the college you went to or the degree you have, and see that you are a capable programmer with a good skill set and a good team player and that kind of thing. So yeah, and then because this is the thing to think about, right? That if they have 1,000 resumes sitting in front of them, how are they going to filter it? And a lot of companies are deciding, oh, well, we'll just filter by computer science degree because that's just one metric. But yeah. Time for some independent development firms for sure. I think now's definitely the time to like start a consultancy or yeah. Because I mean there's definitely like work to be had for sure. In general, overhiring by overfunded, non-profitable VC pumped companies. Yeah, I think it's somewhat similar to the .com bubble. There's a lot I don't know about like the history of investing in companies and stuff like that, but it feels similar. Is this only in America or worldwide? I actually don't know. I know for sure it's a thing in the US, but I don't know. You all can tell me if it's happening in other countries as well. The market will change. Interest rates will go down and there will be a lot of need for devs again. Just be prepared. Yeah, I think, that's the other indicators you can look at, because like right now it is very expensive to get like a home loan in the US. And like interest rates are like sky high. But not just for individuals, it's also, they're sky high for like businesses that are trying to get loans. And loans allow them to hire more people and like last longer and have more reach. And if they can't get loans as well, then they're not going to be growing as much. So once those rates go down, that's potentially going to be helpful for companies to start growing again. Yeah. Pablo says, I'm very fortunate because I never had to do leak codes as interviews. Hopefully with the job experience I have, I can forever skip that part. Yeah, that's a thing for sure. Like my wife is spending so much time just getting up to date on leak codes because everywhere she applies, she like looks on Glassdoor and it's like, yep, they do leak code interviews. And at this point, she has like 6 years of experience, but still has to know how to like solve problems with that are like performant and don't use a lot of memory and stuff like that, which is crazy, especially for like some front end roles having to do that. It's kind of crazy. Bob says, without a degree, you definitely need to rely on networking more, make connections. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. For sure, definitely. Cool. Thanks for your question, Expert T. Good luck out there. I know it's hard. And also, anybody else that's in this same boat, good luck out there. Also, find online programming communities. Like we have the Coding Garden Discord. You can hang out in there. You can chat with people. It hasn't been super active lately, but we do have channels for like finding a pair or getting feedback on your projects or asking questions and stuff like that. So all I'm saying is find ways to stay active even if you don't have a job and you're out there searching. Cool. Cool. Yeah, Jitesh, I think Jitesh was here last time asking about JSON Web Tokens. So they're asking, I've used Passport.js. It has JSON Web Token and local strategies which are in use. I have JSON Web Token figured out. What do I do for the initial login call? So typically the way Passport works is you send the user to a page that your server then redirects them from. So typically it's like you send them to server/auth/Google. Your backend sees that and then redirects them to the Google login page with a specific token, or like state key that can be used so that, not yet. No, it just redirects them, but it passes in your client ID so that the Google login page knows who they're trying to log in as, and when the login is complete, they know where to redirect them to. So if you're using Passport, they do have the callback route that you will have set up. Like if we look in their docs, I see. So you're trying for local. If that's the case, then you're just going to have a backend route that receives username and password as a post request. And then from there, like it also depends on how you're implementing it. So like, are you doing it server-side rendered, or do you have a separate client app and a separate server app? I think I recall you were like using Angular or something like that. Yeah. So in their examples, they're doing a like a server rendered page here that like renders the login form. But yeah, so if you're using Angular on the front end, then you're going to have a backend route that purely just responds to API requests. So it's going to be a backend route that's /auth/login. Post requests are sent there with the username and password. If it's a valid username and password, that route responds with the generated JSON web token. The client side stores that, and then the client side can decide to like redirect it to a dashboard page. But now that they have the token, they can request like privileged resources now that they have that token. But this step right here, where you like do the lookup to verify the user, you're going to need all that. And then this callback ultimately is going to get back to here. So like this has the success redirect. Trying to think, because you don't really want necessarily the success redirect. You actually just want to respond with the token. Let's see. I don't know if I have any Passport apps code recently that implemented this. I have like a really old code base. I don't know if it's still relevant. Yeah, like technically you could do that. So like I don't know if you have access to the request in here. You don't necessarily have access to it, but like this passport.authenticate local, this is actually going to be a call that will in turn use this verify function to verify the user. And yeah, I think establishing a session is potentially... Yeah, it's going to store a cookie that has the session info. Let me see if I can find some old code where I did this. Maybe it's on my personal GitHub? I didn't use Passport on this one. Also, this code is from 7 years ago. Let's look at it. Does this... I thought this had auth on it. No. Yeah, ultimately, a lot of what I've implemented, like if you need like OAuth, Passport is fairly nice for that. There's also a thing called Grant, but if you're already implementing your own backend, you can just use the packages that Passport uses internally to implement it yourself. So you would use something like bcrypt or Argon2 to hash the passwords. I think technically Passport makes you use that yourself anyways. And then your login route literally just does the logic for logging in. It validates the username and password. If it's valid, it generates a JSON web token and then responds with a JSON response that has the token inside of it. And you can just implement that yourself. Trying to remember. Yeah, so like you're already going to have a function that can verify JSON web tokens. You can use the same library to generate those JSON web tokens. I had a whole series on Auth It's, I mean, again, it's several years old, but trying to figure out where this code is. Oh yeah, I have a whole repo, Auth for Noobs. Wow. this this is Auth for Noobs version 2, where we did like an entire refactor. This was from 5 years ago. But if you look at this code base, we have an auth folder, and then we have our auth routes. So we specifically have a sign up route and a login route. When someone makes a post request to log in, we validate the user. I think we just use like yup or joy for that. So validate that they're sending us a username and password. If they're sending us anything that's not a username and password, we'll immediately respond with an error. And then from there, we will find the user. We really refactored this thing to heck. And then from there, we have controller.login. So if we look at controller.login, you can see it first checks the password. If it's valid, we create the token, send the response. It's actually that simple. And then the create token send response method uses the JSON Web Token library. So I'll send you this repo. I'll also send you the not version 2, because version 2 got like heavily refactored because we were trying to make sure we had tests and we were using like the controller pattern and everything else. But if you just look at Auth for Noobs, this one is, all the stuff is like in a it's all in a single file instead of being broken up. So you can see we have our, well, welcome in, Ely. It's been a while. Yeah. So this is like all that without having like middlewares and controllers. This is just everything in a single function. So when someone makes a post request to /login, validate that the username and password are in the body, look that user up, validate the password with bcrypt. If it was valid, create the token and send the response. And create token send response is right here. And again, we're just signing that token. And on the client side, I think we built the client app with Vue.js, but your client-side code is going to be similar for Angular. So we literally just have a login route where it has a form with username and password, and then we make the post request to log in. So we validate the user locally on the client side, and then we make a post request to the backend. And then once we have the response, if it's a successful response, we put that token into local storage, and then we redirect them to the dashboard. But now that the token is in local storage, the dashboard page will make a request and include that token. Yeah, so now the dashboard page, whenever it makes an API request, it includes that token in the request, so that the backend can validate the token and do the thing on the user's behalf. So this repo should help. It's broken up into client and server. Yeah, I would say probably the only thing that's outdated from this repo, which was written 6 years ago, is the fact that these days people recommend Argon 2 for hashing passwords instead of bcrypt. It works in a similar way. You just hash, you get back the thing, and you store the hashed password in your database. You could still technically use bcrypt, but as GPUs get faster and stuff, it's getting a lot easier to brute force some of the things from bcrypt. So yeah. How does this process differ from using Google Auth? Because we don't have to redirect to some other page, like we're in control of the we're in full control of the flow. We receive the username and password from the user in a post request. We can look them up in the database, and then we just respond. If you involve OAuth, it gets trickier because now you need some kind of like token exchange where like you do the OAuth flow, Google's going to redirect you back to a web page that you're in control of. And from there, now that Google has redirected you, you need to generate a JSON Web Token in the context of that user that just got redirected back. That's the main difference. Yeah. This repo is very well organized. It was actually a fun stream. So the Auth for Noobs repo, I paired with a complete beginner to teach them about all the concepts of authentication and authorization. And like, this is also like a good checklist of like what you should implement and what you should be checking for. But then the V2 is when I got a less noob person, someone that had been programming for probably like 2-3 years. And we talked about writing tests, refactoring, and then we got into the idea of like making your code more modular. So like splitting things into middlewares and controllers and stuff like that. Yeah. And Avi, if you rewind the live stream, I did answer your question where ultimately I think the way that you'll need to implement it, Avi, is you'll need to be in control of some page that isn't your extension. Like you have avi12.com. So you could have avi12.com/auth. And that's a client-side web page that you're in control of. And your extensions potentially have permissions to access all the contents of that page. So that way, when you redirect them back there, you can pull the token out of the URL or whatever else and now use that in your extension. Yeah. What's up, Luna? Any tips on building logic? Practice, and then more practice. And also start small. Don't dive in too deep early on. I always recommend Code Wars for this. So if you look at the difficulty rating on Code Wars, 8Q is the easiest, 1Q is the hardest. There are thousands of these problems. And if you filter by 8Q, these are going to be like super easy ones. But make sure you can solve all of these, because when you get into the harder problems are really just a combination of like smaller problems. So like if you look at something like the 6Qs or the 5Qs, it's going to have like a 7Q problem embedded, but that's just like one step of the process. And getting that practice of like, all right, breaking the problem down, solving the smaller bits, building it all back up, that's really how you learn to build out your logic. So yeah, Code Wars helps. Leak code can help too, but I think leak code kind of just throws you into the deep end too early, and is leak code has more of a push towards performance and like less memory usage and runtime, which a lot of times forces you to write like less readable code. So yeah. So logic with JavaScript, I would say start here. So go to Code Wars, sign up, sort by most completed. So a lot of these problems are user submitted, but if you do most completed, these are ones that people have been able to solve because, again, the problem description is also written by volunteers essentially. So sometimes they're like hard to even understand the problem. But yeah, do most completed, choose JavaScript on your language, and then for difficulty, choose 8Q. And then make sure you can solve like at least 100 of these. I know some people that when they're learning, they literally go through and they solve every single 8Q that they can find. So right now there are 384 8Qs. So they'll go through and solve every single one. And then after that, they'll now move on to the 7Qs and then go through and make sure they can solve like every single, there are, let's see how many 7Qs. Almost like 2,000 7Qs. But yeah, I have a playlist over on YouTube. Yeah, we have the Coding Garden clan, we do. And if you want to learn more, Code Katas. Yeah, here it is. We haven't done a Code Katas episode in a long time, but I have over 60 episodes of me just solving Code Wars problems, but also showing my process. And solving it multiple ways. So before, the other thing about building up logic is knowing how to solve the problem before you write any code, because that's an issue that a lot of beginners run into as well, is they just start throwing code at the problem without actually understanding what the problem is asking for. And if you can't solve the problem without code, you're not going to be able to solve the problem with code. And so in these episodes, I basically show that, like, before we write any code, we write what's called pseudocode, and we make sure that we understand the steps that need to be taken with code to actually solve that problem. And then from there, we turn it into code. But Some of these early episodes are pretty rough because I was like, it was the initial idea of it all. But in the later episodes, you can see I kind of like refine the formula of like, all right, we take a 6Q, we break it down, we then solve it, and then we talk about, all right, what are like other ways to solve it, and then because a lot of what I do as well is like I'll literally take one problem and solve it 5 different ways and show you like several different ways of how those things can be done in JavaScript. But short answer, practice. Also, we're in an ad break, so I'm going to stop talking for a few seconds. Yeah, we didn't do Web Security Wednesdays today. Maybe next week. I've solved a few 1Qs, but like 3 or 4 of them, they're really hard. Yeah. When the user loads the content script, what's the process to keep the user logged in until the user logs out? Local storage. Yeah, I think in your case, you will store the token in local storage, and your extension should have access to local storage or whatever. I think isn't there like a storage API for extensions. You could use that to store the token, and then when they log out, you remove the token. Now, that also gets into like the potential complexities of implementing like refresh tokens and stuff like that. But ultimately, store the token, and the extension has access to that token in storage. Do I do any code reviews? I haven't recently. I don't think I will, just because it takes a lot of time. But I've done it in the past. Yeah, I agree with what Ely is saying. Is find some coding communities that'll help you. What are my thoughts on OOP? It's fine. I think OOP matches our thought processes for problems and problem domains, because it groups things into objects, and like that's how we think about the world, is like as objects, like things that have functionality and internal state, and then now we have things that communicate with each other. So I think it's fine. I think it shouldn't be used for everything. Sometimes you can have more elegant solutions like with functional programming, or maybe even like easier solutions with functional programming. OOP can get out of hand. Functional programming can also get out of hand. OOP is fine in moderation. That's my answer. I've done advent of code before on stream too. If you look at my YouTube channel, there's a couple of advent of codes where I'm solving it. But I usually don't make it past like day 8, because then it gets into stuff that I don't have practice doing. Like, also, like typically I bounce out whenever it starts involving math. Like day 8 this year was like greatest common. You needed to use the greatest common multiple and least common multiple to create a solution that could actually solve within the time frame, and I didn't know to do that. So yeah. Avi says, thanks. I'll see what I can do. I was recommended to implement in Firebase for the sake of simplicity. I also need help with modeling the data in Firestore. Yeah, that should work. Like, honestly, I think because Firebase gives you the auth toolkit, then you get access to the token. You should be able to store that token in local storage, and then like when the browser spins up and the extension starts up, send that token to the Firebase auth toolkit. Garden of code? What would that involve? Yeah. That sounds good, Luna. Sounds good. Yeah. All right. Can top2vec be used with Python 3.12? I have no idea. I don't do a lot of Python coding. I would look up this library, see if they support version 3, and then go from there. What do I think about the Web Crypto API? It's cool. It's cool that these things are being baked into browser standards, and we don't necessarily have to reach for another library to do those kinds of things. So yeah. And thank you, Luna. Appreciate that. In what scenarios would you choose to use React's Context API over Redux for state management, and why? Conversely, when would Redux be a more appropriate choice than Context? I think for simple things that don't change that often, the Context API makes a lot of sense. I think the main issue you'll run into with the Context API is if you're storing state there that's used in multiple places and changes a lot, your app is going to start to slow down, because especially if the context is defined at the root, anytime the state of that context changes, every child needs to re-render. So that's where Context API isn't as great. But You could use it for like auth data, because like auth data doesn't change that often. Like the user logs in once, you now have that auth info. It's good for the rest of the user's session, like as long as they're in the web browser. But if you have things that are changing often and are needed in multiple places, that's why when something like Redux or JWT or Zustand, all of those would be great. And so yeah, the answer follows. Like if it's state that needs to be shared across your app and it changes fairly often, put it in the Redux store. If it's state that's local to a component, just use local state in the component. Don't use a store. Yeah, that's my answer there. In React, what's the significance of using keys and lists, and how does that? Is this an interview, Yannick? Are you interviewing me for a React job right now? What's the significance of using keys and lists, and how does the reconciliation algorithm use these keys? It all has to do with the virtual DOM. So React has the virtual version of what the DOM looks like. And when you're changing a list, like the order of the list, or you're removing things from the list and adding them to the list, they're giving me their React homework, exactly. But when that list is changing, the virtual DOM needs to know where the thing in the list was before the list changed. It needs some way to keep track of that, because otherwise it would just have to re-render everything in the list. And so if you give your list elements IDs, now the virtual DOM engine knows, okay, this thing in the array didn't change and it's linked here, so that can stay the same. But this one did change, or it got removed, and so that's the DOM element that it's linked to. So ultimately, it's linking your state to the DOM, so that way changes to the array can be tracked by the virtual DOM reconciliation algorithm. Additionally, what are potential issues you might encounter if you use indexes as keys in dynamic lists? It follows. If you understand what I just talked about, if you use indexes as keys and you're removing elements from the array, now the keys are changing, and we don't want the keys to change, because if the keys change, now they don't line up in the DOM anymore, because if you remove something from the middle, now their indices of everything after that got decremented. So they wouldn't line up with the same thing, which is why you want reproducible and constant keys, because they need to directly map to the element in the DOM. Yeah, so did I get the job? Did I get the React job? Why does React need that when it's inefficient by nature and still has to compare the whole virtual DOM with the real one? Ultimately, it has to do with the actual operations that are performed in the DOM, right? Because the virtual DOM diffing and DOM updates have nothing to do with the elements actually on the page. Well done. Thanks, Yannick. What was I saying? What was your question? Oh yeah, the reconciliation algorithm and all of the virtual DOM stuff happening has nothing to do with the actual elements on the page. And so ultimately, deciding what elements on the page to remove or add or update, that's the whole point of why the virtual DOM is doing all of that hard work, because it wants to reduce the amount of actual DOM operations that are performed. What's up, Murdoch? Welcome in. Which also gets into like not even using a virtual DOM. There's this thing called morph DOM, which you can give it. Whoa. Okay. You can give it some HTML, and it will. It doesn't use a virtual DOM. Given some actual DOM elements and some new HTML, it will figure out the least amount of and the most efficient way to update that DOM to match the HTML. And so this is used a lot, like in web components and stuff like that. You don't necessarily need a like a virtual DOM runtime. Yeah, that's not the DOM we are looking for. But for example, you can say, all right, take this element, take this div. This is the original. Element 1 is the original, and then this is what we want to turn it into. And morph DOM will do all of the changes. So it'll notice, hey, the class changed. So it'll remove that class, add this class. Hey, the inner text changed, so it'll change that inner text. And so this does it without a virtual DOM. It's given an actual DOM element on the page, and give it some new HTML, it'll perform the updates directly. So yeah. Rish asked a new question. How do applications like Raycast or libraries like Reaccord use React to render to non-web interfaces such as native Swift or Discord messages? there's typically some kind of layer in between. I'm not familiar with like how is Raycast implemented. Are they using Electron? Are they using Tari? What are they using? Explain Code Wars again. Check out my playlist over on YouTube because I talk about it. So in the very first video in that Code Wars playlist. Yeah. The very first video in this playlist, I show you how to sign up, and I talk about what Code Wars even is. So check that out over there. They have it in their blog post. Let's check it out. Learn more about how we built the Raycast API and how it works under the hood. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, like Pablo was mentioning. React is the React library itself is all about like state hooks and I guess like the idea of like virtual DOM. The library called React DOM is the thing that can now take that and then make React work inside of a web browser. React Native has another library that takes what React does and now applies it to like native and mobile apps. So apparently they're using like the React render mechanism and then they've like mapped it to like native UI elements. Yeah. This MacBook right here is an M1 Mac. Yeah, so I think what Krish is asking, and I haven't read the whole article yet, but I can imagine that basically what Raycast has done is they are a native application. So it's built in Swift. It runs as a native app on your computer, but when you write extensions, you don't have to write native Swift code. You can write TypeScript or JavaScript, and that means they have some kind of middle layer, some kind of translation layer, and that also means that their SDK gives you some niceties for like working with the more native elements. And what happens is when your extension code is running, they are then passing it through or running it through some kind of middle layer that takes the JavaScript code you wrote and then turns it into like native actions or application actions that can happen. Which means they're probably embedding like node.js. Like when you install Raycast, you probably have a node.js executable sitting there that can interpret that code and then in turn do like lower level interop. But let's see. We need to run React on Node and make it interact with Raycast. Sandboxing the runtime. Yeah, so run JavaScript code through an additional virtual layer, but this is known to degrade performance and the approach is limited. Ironically, using JavaScript core like we did in the first attempt we discarded would have given us a sandbox for free. Yeah, JavaScript core is what Bun is using, isn't it? Yeah. So they have a node worker. Now they're getting into it. Okay. So Node supports worker threads and essentially V8 isolates. This gives us a separate JavaScript engine instance and a run loop. So yeah, the Raycast is a native app. They also have Node.js running. With native apps, you have this idea of native interrupt. So like, and also this idea of inter-process communication. So like two different processes can potentially communicate with each other. And that's probably how they're doing this. And so their Node.js is like a worker running, and it looks like they're using JSON RPC. So the two processes can communicate via JSON messages. Look at that. I kind of know what I'm talking about. So now we're in the world of inter-process communication, and there are a couple ways to do that. We opted for a communication path that uses streams on the standard file descriptors. This enables two-way communication. So the next question is, what do you actually communicate over these streams? And they're using JSON RPC. I saw there's a few messages I missed. I'm going to finish answering this question, and then I'll catch up on the other questions. But what's up, Chronix? Good to see you. So that's how they do it. Your extension, you're writing it with JavaScript, TypeScript. It's running in that node process. And then when it needs to do anything that like changes the native app of behavior, that's happening over JSON RPC. Now, how do they get React involved? My guess is they have like a custom renderer. So like this React is going to spit out a virtual DOM tree, and they have a way of converting that virtual DOM tree into native UI elements. There's different ways to do it directly in Node, like libui node. Is that what it's called? Yeah, so libui is not Node, but libui node. Libui is a cross-platform way of building user interfaces. Libui node lets you build those user interfaces using Node.js and JavaScript. So like you can have one app that compiles for Windows, Linux, and Mac, all with the same Node, like JavaScript code base if you're using libui node. And so it's possible they built something that then like takes the React virtual DOM output and then converts it into native elements. Create a JSON representation for each component. Yeah, so they've implemented. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, Jitesh. Is like they've kind of implemented their own, and not even Electron actually would be a different comparison because Electron is literally just a web view that is running your stuff, running your app. But then it also has access to native stuff using inter-process communication. This is a closer comparison to like React Native, the way that React Native does it, in that you have that React code that spits out a virtual DOM tree, and then the React Native runtime or whatever else is going to convert that output into actual native UI elements. It looks like AppKit. I don't know what AppKit is. This might be that view layer. I see. AppKit is a Swift UI thing. So yeah, as far as I'm understanding, there's a Node.js process running. You write your code with that. That lets you interact with the native operating system and also the Raycast app itself. If you want to build custom UI, you build that out with React. And when they render it, they're taking that virtual DOM tree that React spits out, and they're creating it an actual AppKit component tree so that it can render natively on macOS. That is my understanding of how they do it. There's probably a lot more to it too. Thanks for your question though. That was fun to explore. Yeah, I'll have to look at Raycast at some point. People have recommended it. So how do web applications like Raycast or libraries like React use React to render to non-native interfaces? That's exactly how they do it. And then to see that, what I was talking about earlier, how React and React DOM are technically separate. So like React is the library that has virtual DOM and everything else. But ultimately, when we call this render function, well, never mind. This create root and render, these are coming from React DOM. So this library right here is actually taking our React component and then applying it to the DOM. But you could imagine, instead of using React DOM, now we write our own library that can take that output and then spit it out as native UI components or whatever else. And so that's basically what they have. Instead of using React DOM, they now have their own custom library that gives you like a native UI. Yeah. All right, let me catch up on the chat. So earlier, Avi mentioned the issue is that I cannot load external JavaScript. I must do everything with HTTP request or download the Firebase library. Yeah, I think as long as you can embed the Firebase library, it does all of the management of like your auth tokens and everything, but it should actually have a method to manually set the token. But I do believe it puts it in local storage anyway. So if you can get that Firebase JS library running inside of your extension, it should handle everything. It should. Yeah, no worries, I'm Blanky. Salutations from Burkina Faso. Oh, awesome. Welcome in, JD. Yeah. Right. Pablo has it. And hey, Zero Turner, good to see you. Yeah, React has a concept of a renderer, exactly. There's React nil that renders literally to null. There's also a React library that can render to the terminal. So if you've ever seen like terminal UIs, someone wrote a library that will render your React components as like tables and things inside of a UI here. Like basically almost like building Vim, but building it with React. Yeah, so I'm coding on this laptop. You can see I have HDMI out, and then I have a streaming computer. If you look on my gear page, here, and you go all the way to the bottom, it talks about how I do this. But I have basically a gaming computer that everything plugs into. So this HDMI cable goes to a capture card that's in the computer, and then my microphone right there is plugged in via USB to that computer. And then I'm using OBS to like composite everything. So yeah, I use an external machine, which means I can, for instance, like unplug my laptop, or this laptop could die and the stream stays up. Because this is literally just yeah, it's just for coding and stuff. And that also means that this MacBook doesn't have to work as hard, so my fans aren't spinning up or anything like that. What are my thoughts on GraphQL? It's fine. It solves a specific kind of problem. If you have that problem, it seems fine. There are other ways to solve it. I think sometimes this is like my answer to every like opinion question or like thoughts questions. Like sometimes you can go too far in GraphQL, meaning like you have heavy client queries, and yeah, so they're like heavy client queries, and like a potentially like slower front end because you're just loading so much data that you might not even need. But I think there's a nice middle ground, and like there's some scenarios where maybe even if you're using GraphQL, like it would be better for performance to maybe not use it for certain scenarios. Like you fall back to like more RESTful endpoints that don't require the client to query. I don't know. Prozimko asks, with learning projects, would you recommend creating new features using a framework or using a library to make it easier and faster? Sure. If you know what a framework or library is doing for you, that's totally fine. If you want to learn what those things are doing for you by building from scratch, that's also another way to learn. But I think it's completely fine to use those tools as long as you understand that they are providing extra stuff. Yeah. If you have Raycast installed, you can just open it. I don't have Raycast. But how does React stuff get events? Like when the React in the browser, it's all built into the browser, but with other stuff like this example has events on some arbitrary Discord button. Let's see. Yeah, ultimately, the output of React does not add the event listeners, right? So earlier I showed you the React DOM. React DOM is the thing that's going to go in and see, oh, there should be a click handler here. It's going to do element.add event listener. Your implementation, let's say you're implementing that library yourself, is going to know that, hey, this has a click event handler and you need to do something with it. So basically the renderer here is just deciding to like fire off an event in its own way that is required, if that makes any sense. I mean, we could look at the source code for React Cord to see how it does this. But I guess let me just get familiar with what React Core does. I think this lets you create little UIs inside of Discord. Yeah, like this. If you were to look at the Discord API for building this without React Core, there's going to be some kind of emitter that would emit, or like some event that you're listening for when one of those buttons is pressed. And so React Core has basically abstracted all of that away from you to say, all you have to do is specify onClick, and I will in turn call your function when that event is emitted. Internally, that's how they implement it. They've basically looked at the Discord API to see what goes on there, and when they render this thing out, they're mapping it to that mechanism, if that makes sense. Like it still looks like onClick, but it's not actually a click listener. They're actually tapping into the event that gets fired when that button is pressed inside of the Discord UI. Yeah. So I see Krish's latest message. So the events are not React defined; they're based on what you render to. Exactly. So even though it's called onClick, I'm guessing that the React renderer is giving you like a function reference in the virtual DOM tree, and then now the way that you map that virtual DOM tree to to a Discord UI is you add all of the correct listeners to say, like when that button was clicked, now call this callback that they specified. Yeah. I've recently been hating the experience React and Next are providing. I'm not saying current iteration of Next is bad, but it becomes super hard to maintain over long times if they change every year drastically. It feels like at this point, every Next project is running on beta software. I felt the same way when I technically was trying the app router when it was in beta, so like I guess that I had a reason to feel that way. But yeah, I think other people are feeling that way too. It feels like it's starting to solidify, like in terms of like changing less, but yeah, it's the price to pay when you're at the bleeding edge for sure. All right, I have been live for 3.5 hours, so I'm gonna just finish up here and then get out of here. Yeah, we answered this one. My app is broken apparently. Please suggest a short roadmap for a beginner who wants to become a better developer who only knows HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I mean, if you haven't seen roadmap.sh, they try to do this. So if you know only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can look at this front-end roadmap, and there's just so many different places you could start to dive into. Because if you know the basics, then you can start to get into even the more complex aspect of these things. Like if you know the basics, you probably could start learning about TypeScript. That's one thing. If you know the basics of CSS, you could probably start learning about post CSS or Sass. HTML is still kind of its own thing. But if you look at this, for example, yeah, there's like some JavaScript stuffs, but then here is where it gets more complex beyond the basics, and you could dive into any one of these things. Like, yeah, like learning more about what do you call it? How to structure your Sass using things like BEM, or using CSS post processors like I was talking about, or learning something like Tailwind. And then moving beyond JavaScript itself, you could like start to learn about like a framework or whatever else, and then you could learn about like front end build tooling. So yeah, this is probably a good place to start. You can just start following this and diving deeper into any one of those things. Cool. Are there ever times when you can't get things working right, and how do you get into a positive headspace to continue? Take a break. So, ultimately. Yeah, take a break. You'll be surprised the amount of like some subconscious processing your brain does when you just step away from a problem. Like go for a walk, eat a snack, play a game, watch TV. Your brain is still working behind the scenes without you even knowing it. Even if you take a nap or you're like at night when you're sleeping. Yeah, there have been so many times in my career where I just stopped working on that thing for the day, and then when I came back to it the next day, I instantly had the problem. Yeah. So Me Too says sleep on it. The number of times I've gone to bed after being stuck for hours only to wake up with the solution. Yeah, that has happened to me so many times as well. It's like your brain is it's it's subconscious processing. It's thinking and solving even when you're not actively thinking about it. So yeah, ultimately take breaks, step away. That should help. How do Angular observables work under the hood? I have no idea. Observables, I think that you're referring to are like RxJS, right? Like this. And under the hood, they're either using like JavaScript proxies or it's all event based anyway. So you just have like subscribers for events and emitters of events. Yeah. Where can I buy free debugs and coding garden stickers? Redbubble. Actually, if you look on the support page, it has a link to stickers. Yeah, so if you go over to Redbubble, I only make like 20 cents per sticker, but there's that free debug sticker. And here's some like older coding garden stickers too. And I appreciate that, Pablo. I just thought of though, I want to make a new sticker that's like the the Cartoon Network logo. Like this. Coding garden has the same number of letters, so I'd like to make a coding garden logo that looks like this. That'll be one of the new stickers that I make. All right, we're gonna answer this one, and then I'm gonna get out of here. What's your view on the state of front end currently? I work as a SRE. I think it's a site reliability engineer, and I keep hearing tales of React being very finicky sometimes, or performance testing for front end being really hard. I'd like to know, how do you view things? Are they good? Are they bad? Or are they ugly? Maybe I'm just not close enough to the problems, I guess. I don't know. Because I guess if I can talk about my experience, like my, you want that one? Nice. I should make it. I should go ahead and like design it. But yeah, my experience with apps is typically like, I guess they just work. I mean, like I do my best to make them work. And then I'm not doing anything too crazy. So in my long career, like I've been writing React since I think at least 2016. The only time I had to like try and debug a performance problem, I can't even remember what it was, but it was like once or twice where that even happened. So maybe I'm just not working on the right kind of apps, right? Maybe I'm not running into those issues. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think for me, like the state of front end is also like you don't necessarily have to use React. Yeah, welcome in, and thank you, Ely. Thank you for being here. I will say I typically go live on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Right now, my schedule is up in the air. But if you check this page, I try to keep not that. I gotta spell it right. I try to keep this up to date, and I will be live on Friday. Umheck says, I think you don't run into those issues because you're organizing your code in ways that make re-renders minimal already. I guess that's a good point to bring up. Yeah, and this is what Umheck is saying. And that's potentially another way to talk about this is, I think too many React developers write React without knowing how it actually works, without actually knowing about the render and update cycle, and what all of that entails. And how to minimize it, and basically being able to predict, all right, the code that I have written will cause a re-render for X, Y, and Z reasons. Knowing that ahead of time makes you make better choices about how you actually write that code. So, I mean, I don't want the answer to be that I'm just get good. Like I'm a better coder, so I don't run into those things. But I think ultimately that's it. It's like I care about my craft, so I try to understand how things work, and I try to minimize the amount of guess and check. So that way, oh, thank you, Pablo. So that way, if I write something the first time I write it, it's going to be like fairly performant. I will say the other aspect of this is if you don't use React, it's also easier to make sure you have performant code. Because things like Svelte doesn't have a virtual DOM render cycle. It kind of is just more performant by default. You have to do less work. Similar with Vue, it has like compile time optimizations that make it so that you don't really have to think about the render cycle as much as you do in React. But yeah, I don't know. That's basically, yeah, that's my experiences if you understand how it all works, you're going to make better decisions and then run into less performance issues. And all of that has just been an advertisement for my React Roots course. And the website is broken because, what is it, font library? They implemented a redirect. Yeah, so look at what they did. I don't know why a font website needs this, but if you go to grab the font, it redirects you to a language. Now, maybe it makes sense to have fonts load differently depending on the locale. Is that a thing? I guess I've never run into that. No, the website is not written with React. Actually, it was written with Astro. It's broken because the font URL has a redirect, and then the CSS font loader is not following that redirect. But yeah, that's just my gripe right now. I was like, why would you need a locale redirect to load font information? Regardless, in my course about React Roots, or no, sorry, in my course about React, I talk about how React works from the ground up, and also all the other things involved with React. And I do think if you're a beginner to React and you're a beginner to TypeScript, I give you a really good foundation that will prevent you from falling into the traps that potentially you fall into if you don't really understand how React is working. But yeah. Great work, everyone. We did it. Sebastian says, I'm tired that many content creators now are all using paid services, and it's very sad. Like PlanetScale, AWS. Yeah, I think the whole hobby dev tier has gone through cycles. Like, I think you especially saw it start to end whenever Heroku was no longer free. And ultimately, it's just that these services, too many people were abusing the free tier. Too many people were using them for free when they actually had like an app that was making money, and then they weren't paying for it at all. And that's actually at the cost of everyone else who was just trying to like learn with these services, or they had like a small app that wasn't actually making money. But that is the case. Like, I think, like, I mean, does PlanetScale have a free tier? Yeah, I mean, you can get 5 gigs of storage. I think ultimately, why this doesn't work for a lot of people is you might have multiple hobby projects, and I think beyond a single hobby project, you have to start paying. So that is the thing. But yeah, it seems that's the way things are, Sebastian. Changed a bunch. So the thing is, that specific font I use, Glacial Indifference, it's not on here. Yeah, it's only on fontlibrary.org. Because Glacial Indifference is a free implementation of Futura Bold, like this, which is my favorite. I use this on all Coding Garden stuff. Yeah. When Railway had the free buffer zone, it was great, but yeah, then bad actors ruined it. Do I trust having your database on PlanScale and not in your own hosting? Well, I think at that point, like that's the whole purpose of a service like PlanetScale, is like you don't want to have to manage your own database. And so yeah, I would trust it if I was hosting there, because that's what they do. That's their business model. And then I think the flip the question is like, do you trust yourself to secure a database server that you set up from scratch, to make sure you have frequent backups? Like, it's a lot of work to maintain a database server. So using a service like that typically is like worth the money. What email services do you use? I don't trust myself either. I mean, what email services do you typically use for small projects? There's a few. It's not like Mailgun. Mailgun is what I used for my personal email for a very long time. I recently switched out, but yeah, Mailgun is one of them. What are some other ones? SendGrid is like a really popular one. I have the most experience with Mailgun. But this just gives you like a little endpoint you can post requests to like send emails. And then I don't know if they have APIs for like receiving emails too. Cool. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. This was fun. We answered a lot of questions. We hung out. We talked about the news. I appreciate you all for hanging out with me and asking good questions. Tune in on Friday. We're going to be doing a Try-Day Friday. I don't know what we're going to be trying. If we look at the list of things people have suggested in the past, our options are Astro.net, Drizzle. I mean, maybe this Friday is the day where we try Adonis.js. Maybe it is, especially with the new release. Or yeah, like Pablo is suggesting, we could try apps. I could try to use Raycast. The thing is, like, I use Alfred, and I don't use any of really like the workflow features. I could try having a good day. Yeah, you're right. Heck, you're totally right. The only thing I do is I implemented this custom thing where if I say bye for now, it turns my Wi-Fi off and puts my computer to sleep. So I implemented that custom workflow, but that's like all I use. I know Raycast has so much more you can do with like workflows and stuff like that. But it could be interesting to do a day where we're trying products and hosted stuff, and we're not necessarily trying. Oh yeah, my Wi-Fi is off now. And then, so that's the other thing is anytime I turn my computer back on, I turn my my Wi-Fi back on. All right, but I'll see you all on Friday. Follow me over on YouTube if you have not yet. Also, follow me on Twitter. And if you are watching over on YouTube, if you head over to Twitch, we're about to do a raid. So if you want to join, just head over to Twitch. And a raid is where we take all of our viewers and send them over to some other stream. So we have some raid messages for you. Let's all practice the raid messages. If you're a sub, you can use this raid message. If you're not a sub, you can use this raid message. Everyone, do your best to try using the raid message now. And wherever we go, show them lots of love. Drop a follow if you like what they're doing, and I'll see you all on Friday. So wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.